so call the meeting of the West Newbury Select Board to order for Monday, May 9th at 7:08 p.m. Let's see. So this meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on local cable channels and on the internet. And the meeting is also accessible by remote participation with instructions that were on the minutes that are online. There's a Memorial Day parade planning well underway. Things seem to be going pretty well. Or so Angus told us.
Yep.
And it's of course Monday, May 29th, Labor Day or Memorial Day at 10:30 a.m. Followed by a ceremony outside of the GAR Memorial Library. Yeah, kind of a sort of a great hurdle that we just got over was there was a grant application sent in at the end of last week or late last week for the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Action Grant. It was a pretty significant work effort, and I really want to give credit to Elisa Grammer for many dozens of volunteer hours and to Christine Wallace for many hours of her time as the town's programs and projects manager. The two of them just did an outstanding work, great product. Speaking for myself as a member of that committee, I just sort of was along for the ride, it felt like, and they did 95% of the work. As always, we have plenty of positions available for volunteer for FY24 on numerous boards, commissions, and committees. You can go to the town website, wnewbury.org/volunteer, to see that listing. If anybody wants to contribute to the municipality, it would be great. It's a good way to learn more about the town, to meet other people, and just learn in general. I just want to make note of the passing of Dot Kavanaugh, who I guess Dot lived here for 35 years or so. She moved here before I did. She was sort of ever present in things related to the town. She was a huge contributor. I know she was on the Garden Club, which of course is not directly the municipality, but she was very active in the town in various ways, helped out in the town clerk's office quite a bit. So I just wanted to acknowledge her passing. It was a loss to all of us. I guess the last thing in the announcements is that anybody can subscribe to the town for town emails for agendas, news, and announcements. And that's at the town website again, wnewbury.org/subscribe. So our first order of regular business is.
If I could just
sure.
very briefly. First of all, I want to echo what you said about Dot. There's a lot of sadness here in the town offices. Dot had filled in as a staff person, as needed staff person with the clerk's office, the assessors, finance, treasurer, collector all over the years. So she's has a lot of friends in this building, and a lot of us are very, very sad at her passing. On a brighter note, I did want to share, we did hear from our bandstand committee earlier today, and they have now posted the schedule for the summer concert series of the bandstand. So that's posted to the town Facebook page, and we'll include that in future news announcements. But from June 22nd to August 24th, every Thursday, 6:30 to 8 p.m. So we just got this today. It wasn't in time for the posted agenda. But that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, those are fun. Those are fun shows. Good. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, great. Yeah, so our first order of regular business at the beginning of each new or following each election, when a new member is elected, or sometimes an older member is reelected. In this case, a new member, Chris Weil, was elected, and our first order of business is to reorganize the select board, through, election of officers. And, I guess getting right to it, I would nominate Wendy Reed as chair.
Be pleased to second that.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I think Wendy would be great at it.
Well, thank you,
You're
Chris.
gonna keep our nose to the stone,
Yeah.
to the grindstone. Any other discussion? All in favor?
We'll abstain. Next matter form.
This is.
Oh, I just want to say that I'm not prepared to chair this meeting now because you set the agenda, so I think you should carry on.
Oh,
I mean, isn't that
Okay,
typically
that's-
how?
I've seen it done both ways.
Is what- how-
Yeah.
I have no objection if that is better for you, that's
I think
fine.
that makes sense. I just.
I can
assumed you-
stumble along just as I have in the past, so.
Okay.
We need a vice chair. Can I nominate Rick?
Are you willing to be vice chair again? I think that
It's
would be
pretty,
great.
it's a pretty easy lift.
Oh, I think it's
There,
good.
I guess you gotta pinch it sometimes, but
Yeah, all right, second. Was that a nomination, Chris?
Yes.
All right, I'll second that.
so you as chair now,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain. And then, and then I will
I don't know if I wanna
nominate
vote
Chris.
for you. You want to vote for yourself, why should I?
And then I'll nominate Chris as clerk.
Second.
Any discussion?
No,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Think I would continue to monitor the select board email unless that's something you want to take on. I don't think that's technically part of the clerk's duty.
No, that's something that, yeah, I wanted to just revisit how.
Yeah, I think
how
it's
you want
working
to do
out.
that.
I feel
Yeah,
like I
it is.
flowed.
Yeah, no, you seem to have it pretty well dialed in and you respond more promptly than I probably would, so.
Yeah, okay, so I'll continue doing that. So the rest of these, should we wait until the fiscal year? So we're doing it at the same time as the committees? I think we made that.
I think
Yeah,
that makes a
that, yeah,
lot of
that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, particularly, yeah, say, I don't,
You're
Yeah, I
talking
mean,
about
isn't
the
it-
committee appointments?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
because
yeah.
you said we would like to see a little
Yeah.
synopsis of each and.
Yeah.
And things that'd be good.
Well, no, she was referring specifically to,
Our-
there
Oh,
are four
Yeah.
positions that board members are on, the capital improvements committee,
Yeah, I
the,
thought,
investment policy committee, the, CPA. What else?
The building
The
committee.
building committee, right.
Are any of those really gonna change?
Well, Archie would be
Archie's
on.
not
Yeah,
But I do want to say, when you talked about the school building committee, the second sentence.
Yeah, I think that's a carryover from a prior memo.
Oh, there was a typo there, wasn't there?
Oh.
No, it's
yeah.
just a-
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just a-
that is, yeah, that's
Carry.
a carryover.
Yeah. He lives on.
Oh, shoot, yeah, that all should come out, I'm sorry.
I had some notes on that.
Okay, well, now I need to get my computer open.
All right,
Okay.
next item on the agenda, we've got a continued discussion of the request for, we have an Eagle Scout. So you can do trail maintenance behind Page School, and I believe we have Scout and his family here, so
Great.
appreciate you coming in.
You can maybe just pull that mic over toward yourself. You're probably safe sitting there if you pull it over in the general direction. Great.
You guys don't know me, my name is Jack Rowe. I'm a lifestyle from 241 in West Newbury and Merrimack. And I have submitted my proposal for the project to Michelle, which, that'd be nice. So I'm here just to answer any questions you may have about the project.
And Michelle has joined us virtually, so she's on as well.
Great. Yeah, I guess, there was some material sent around, late this afternoon, or sometime this afternoon, and it showed, there were 4 photos. They were mostly of down or damaged or well-worn signage. And, what were your thoughts about how, the best way to replace those signs?
Well, I feel like instead of taking the signs off the trees and possibly damaging the trees, I feel like it'd be easier to, less consequential with the trees to repaint them. with the corresponding colors of the trail, which is green and yellow.
So I didn't see the photos, what?
That went, actually went around, looks like, yesterday morning.
That one was, okay, I guess I didn't get to it until today, so, okay.
Eagle Scout proposed project.
Okay, I guess I didn't see the photos.
There was a PDF with four, but that's out here if you want.
Yeah, I can show, I've got them right here, one that I can share.
Okay. So what,
Because I think you had what, SATs on Saturday? Is that yours?
How's it go?
That's fine.
Yeah.
so these are what conservation area?
It is the Riverbend Trail System behind Bay School.
So there's one, that's on a post. So one of them has a sign on it, with also with a green marker, and that's something, the kind of post you're thinking about, a 4x4 post, something like
Yes.
that, yeah, okay. And then that one.
Yeah. Okay.
With a pipe next to it there. Yeah. So, yeah, I wonder how long ago those were painted and with the best choice of. I guess you'll figure that out. You'll research that and figure out what the best material to use, the best coating to use on them for the longest life. That's,
The ones that are there now, they
yeah,
look like old decking that was cut up into,
okay,
just basically squares and they just made a triangle.
yeah,
I don't know if they're pressure treated, they won't, but that's similar to what we could do that. Just
Yeah.
have a bunch of them and whatever ones need to be replaced,
okay.
if that's.
Yeah, I guess I think you just really want to think about what the material is and, you know, and how to make them the most as durable as possible. We have, this, you know, this obviously is one of the trails where there are signs down in numerous places, and it seems to be a common problem with trail signage. You know, it doesn't last forever. You know, fortunately, we're down here near sea level as opposed to up on top of the mountain where it doesn't last at all.
So the work that you're proposing is strictly in Riverbend? Is that
Yes,
correct?
strictly,
Yeah.
strictly in the Riverbend Trail System.
Okay, and you've talked with the conservation agent about wetlands and buffer zones and all
Yes.
that, yeah. So is that something new that you've learned that you weren't aware of before?
I was somewhat aware of it. I mean, I haven't really learned much about it, but yeah, I'd say it's something new.
Mhm.
And she volunteered to, as part of the proposal, we met with her and we walked through, and then she also said she'd be present during the project to ensure that nothing ends up in the wetlands.
Great. So will you be making a report to the Conservation Commission at all? Is that part of what you're thinking?
No,
No?
we were just,
She said that she was gonna check with all parties. and
Right.
three of them.
we
Yeah,
just
I guess
had,
it was three that she was gonna just check with
Yeah,
all
the open
parties.
space committees and.
Yes,
Yeah.
and just to make sure that it was okay with everybody, the landowners and conservation.
Yeah. So, Michelle, are you available to answer a question?
Still muted.
No.
Hi, can you hear me?
So I just wanted to make sure that it sounds like you're gonna talk with the open space committee, because there's ongoing discussion about trail markers and whether we all want the same ones at all properties. So, yeah.
Yeah, so my hope is that, you know, we can get Jack's project underway and that this is a good, maybe medium time solution. I know there's really long going far back conversations just about kind of streamlining the trail markers and getting them the same in all locations, but there's been no decisions made yet. So I think this is a great way to, you know, get those markers up and have those trails be navigable and in good shape until those decisions are made. So I don't think it's, you know, a waste of effort. I think it's a great project, and I'm hoping open space sees it the same way. Just as far as conservation, really quick, this has been on their agenda already. We had it on the same week that this was last on the select board's agenda. The Conservation Commission seems open and, you know, on board with the project, and they were just pending pretty much this meeting and Jack's report that went around the other day or this morning with what he would be doing.
Great.
Is there a lot of, you know, I rode down through there a week and a half or so ago, you know, just because I knew you were gonna be looking at that, so I did a bike ride down through there. The trails are in remarkably good shape compared to what they were like a few years ago. I guess I've been out there for a while. They, you know, I think that DPW did some work and, you know, graded the, must have brought in a bunch of material to fill in the bad erosion right down below the water tank. You know, you're probably familiar, you know, probably been going down there for a few years.
Like that whole area, like that.
Well, actually, just right below the water tank, if you go by the water tank and then drop down the hill and there was about 200 yards. Is that the red
The
trail?
red, yeah, it's the red,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that had just a really terrible erosion issue. And looks like that was fixed and they actually rerouted somewhat so that, to control the water flow. Trying to remember what they had done. I don't know if they put water bars in. Ecta did that? Okay, yeah. So it's yeah, much better. So that'll make your job. It would have been nasty to take on that job by yourself otherwise.
I believe there's only a couple trails, I
Yeah,
guess, that
yeah.
they were focusing on.
Yeah,
I think it was the Pentucket Trail and the Myopia.
okay,
It's not like they're gonna do the entire,
okay.
No, they just did that red trail. That was a couple of years ago, I
Okay.
think. Yeah. The drainage was so bad. It was like a channel going.
Right.
Really?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, good.
So what is your time frame to finish this work?
Well, I hope to finish it sometime in the summer this
Mhm.
year.
Great. Sounds like a great project. Appreciate you taking this on.
Thank you.
Were there any new, you know, in the photos that were sent, the first one shows, you know, 4x4 posts with an interpretive sign or, you know, trail map on it. Or will there be any more trail map signs put up or?
Yes, we have seen a few of those like kiosks throughout the trail system.
Yeah, and will there be any additions to those or just, I guess that's probably something that open space is taken care of up till now.
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, we're willing to do things, but we were told to start, and then with everything, the ongoing projects, just to pretty much.
Yeah.
Replace in kind and.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's a good idea. That's a good
Okay.
approach, yeah. In
okay.
case they decide to change things.
Right.
Yeah.
Because everything's still undecided, so we're
What
just.
when you said in case they try to decide to change things,
Well, so the long-term goal is to have the same kind of signage at all town properties.
okay,
So, but that decision is kind of stalled right
Yeah,
now, like how to do that and where do we start and all that. So I think addressing the immediate need, which is missing trail markers
Yeah.
or missing paint, is really
Yeah.
a great service. Yeah.
okay. Great,
So do we need to make a motion?
yeah,
Yes.
we do.
Okay. And what would the motion be? Just approving the.
So it would be to approve the request in front of you, because we've got a sign that there's been approval by the beneficiary that the service project would provide benefit. And we do what we can to see it through and so forth. So I'd say if you take a motion to accept the proposed project and to authorize the work.
Okay,
And perhaps even specify that the it would be under the oversight of the conservation agent.
all right, I move to approve the Eagle Scout project as proposed by Jack Rao.
Yes.
For the Riverbend Conservation Area under the supervision of the conservation agent.
And for the goal of completing this summer. Great,
Yes.
and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Great, thank
Thanks,
you.
Jack.
You appreciate it.
Enjoy it, have fun.
Thank you.
Watch out for the ticks.
right?
So I know you need that formal sign, so we'll get that sign and send that over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to, we don't know your name, but Jack's parents. I'm sure they're coming along.
Dan and Christopher.
Okay, great,
Michelle's been very helpful in assisting with us.
yeah, great,
Good to
She's
hear.
met with us and talked with us, and she's been very supportive, so we appreciate it.
great.
Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome. I'm still here. I'm just a little jet lagged, so we're hanging with the video off.
Jet lagged. I want to hear that
Coming
story.
back from California.
Jeez.
Yeah,
No.
been for a couple of days, well earned vacation.
Nice.
Great. Okay,
So I did get a text message from Jim that Myopia wouldn't be able to make it tonight for their request. I don't know if you need them here In my opinion, you don't, these are.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty routine,
Well, I
a
did
couple
have
times a year. Did you?
Question
Okay.
about the Pipe Stave Hill one. There's no impact on parking for the fields or anything like that. I mean, I know this is during the day, but I didn't see that addressed anywhere. It just says non-applicable, so.
Well,
Which date, which one are you,
The second one, let's see.
the May 30th?
Yeah, the location of the event says Pipe Stave. I mean, the map shows it going across 113 on the Page School side.
yeah, but they probably park in the Pipe Stave.
Well,
Lot, yeah.
that's what I was just wondering. And then, so there wouldn't be any impact to the playing fields,
Well, it's 10 to 12 on
Right.
a Tuesday, so,
right?
I wouldn't.
Oh, right.
be Any other use of the fields at that time.
Yeah, I just want to make sure because there's.
It is interesting the way, you know, not to be a stickler about this, but it would be helpful if the photos that they showed with the maps shows the entire route.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, this is something just, it's been a little, you know, they don't tend to provide new, you know, they always
Yeah.
say you already have them on file.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of different routes and that
Yeah.
leaves someone on staff
Right.
to make sure we're using the
Right.
same, the
Right.
right map,
Yeah.
because there's multiple routes, so.
Yeah. I mean, does anybody want to see a full map? I would like at least in the future to see a full map. I don't know if we
I looked
want
at the
to.
map and obviously an awful lot of it's on private trails.
Right.
So I didn't even quite know where it's all going. So I
Yeah.
was looking at street crossings.
Yeah.
And yet you're correct that it is cut off. but,
Yeah, yeah, but both of them are cut off.
And
Those
so
are the
Mike
maps.
said that they don't require cross, I mean, it says, you know, they're gonna have street,
Across the door.
yeah, I mean, so Mike obviously doesn't feel like he needs to have a police presence
Right.
with those.
I think it's just from a public interest standpoint, it's nice to know where the route actually is.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
debating, that was
Yeah.
moving on to a second question of, is their own street crossers adequate or? do
Oh,
they need
okay.
police
Oh, I
presence
see,
for-
yeah, yeah.
Mike basically said, yeah, it's good. So
Yeah.
I asked the same question in my head when I saw
Yeah.
his letter that was
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
Okay. So apparently they have not had that in the past either, so,
Not the police.
yeah,
no,
the detail, yeah,
Right.
okay. Yeah, I mean, would it be appropriate to follow up with them with an approval and the request for future events to have an updated complete application for each?
I think that would be good. I know at a staff level, that request has been made. I haven't personally made it, but I know that, you know, Annie asked them
Mhm.
every time and they'd say, you already have it. And it's, okay, well,
Well, what is,
it's almost like there's a resistance to the need to ask for permission, like they
Yeah.
want to do the bare minimum to, because they.
well, should we
it's
delay
almost like a
approval?
headache to like ask for permission, but that is required, so.
We can make the motion pending approval, submittal of the maps. That's what you want.
I think that
Yeah.
would get the point across
That would
rather
get
than
the point
trying.
across.
okay.
Yeah.
Sure, so I would move that we approve, as Chris just suggested, pending, we approve with approval, final approval pending, receiving updated full maps of the route.
And was that the only thing that says on file? Do you have the certificate of insurance? It says to follow.
So again, this is something that, you know, with Jim not here, like
Oh,
at this
okay.
point, his office, I'm not
Okay,
involved with the special event
Well,
application, so.
you know what, maybe, why don't we just hold off?
Well, the next one, I think is what, the 23rd is 2 weeks from.
yeah.
Okay, so we,
Insurance certificate and maps.
I'm pretty confident it would not be here if
If
we
it
didn't
didn't.
have it,
Yeah.
but I don't personally know that.
Okay.
so.
Okay. So,
Maps, DOI.
so is that something that your office would do to follow up with them or?
Yeah, or Jim, I mean, I'll let him know in the morning and, hey, yeah, because I, as you know,
Right, so I was wondering if,
Yeah.
if the select board, if I should write an email from. the
Jim will take care of that, Jim, our new assistant. For
Okay,
So to be clear, the motion is we're gonna vote to approve.
approved pending receipt of full maps and certificate
and
of
certificates
insurance.
of insurance.
That's the motion that Rick made.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? On favor?
right,
Aye.
Thank you. Jim also texted me that he had not heard back from the ALS ride sponsors. And that event's still a little ways off. I don't know if you want to take that up based on what you have in front of you, or if you'd like to wait until someone can actually be present.
Well, it looks like it's a complete application.
It
right?
does, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't
Yeah,
see anything
public
else in it.
safety signed out.
Mhm.
Can I ask a couple of silly questions then?
No
Sure.
silly questions allowed.
I think it talks about police detail, and they say not applicable, but the police chief says one required,
Yeah,
so that would have to get modified. Second question is, obviously it comes up, was it Church Street, I guess? And then hits 113, that's the extent it's in town, not much, but 113 is a state highway, is there any complications with that?
Yeah, I was very confused by what they showed for routing. I couldn't figure out what they were.
Comes across the Rocks Village Bridge, up, Church, and then down 113 into Groveland, so it's only in West Newbury for a short time.
I don't see it coming across the Rocks Village Bridge.
Yeah, probably do.
Yeah, page 25.
Yeah, the map isn't helpful, but it's a little.
Yeah, it does down on the bottom right there.
I highlighted it right
Isn't
here.
the red the map?
Yeah,
They've got to come across there.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. The red's the map. So at this little hook
They're
back,
on the other side of the.
that
river.
little hook back right there,
Oh, okay.
crosses the river right there.
All right,
So does 113, because it's a state highway,
that's interesting. I don't know. We haven't asked that question. I don't think we've had
Do we have right-
races on 113, have
to
we?
grant approval for something that's not something you have.
Yeah, it's not closing the road.
No, we're saying it's okay. Do they need state approval? I don't know.
I've never heard that come up.
But have we had a race that's actually gone on 113? It seems like it's usually back by the
I don't
reservoir.
know.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Well, that's an interesting thing for if it's on Route 113, is town approval?
Carry on, wait.
Yeah, right. I don't, yeah.
113, the state could require a different level of administration
detail.
of police. I don't know. I'm just. Then the last question would be the insurance certificate. For the levels appropriate to what the town typically requires. I don't know what to look at, but.
So should we defer this until the next meeting then?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Well, where do we get an answer about 113 and how that impacts this permit?
I just talked to the fire.
It would be interesting if they could clarify their description. It didn't really make sense to me.
The insurance, Chris, the 1 million incident, 2 million aggregate is what we have required.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just not to make sure. Thank you.
I got a question. Never been there. Where?
You're done. You-
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We just thought you were. Yeah, about 11 o'clock here.
You'll get a whole other back to sit for the winter.
He's really struggling with allergies, so we're like, oh.
Yeah, no, you can,
Free to go.
you're good to go anytime
Thank you.
anytime you're tired of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, I thought the submittal was really well done and fully completed.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. See you later.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great night.
Yeah, you too.
What description are you asking about?
Oh, this description here, I just keep right to Church Street, keep right to Church Street, turn sharp right into Church Street. Those are three.
You come over the bridge, right to church, take the hard right, up the street on the 113.
Yeah, okay.
Come on, Rick, pretend you're on your bike, you're going.
I would just take one turn out of Church Street. That's okay.
These are for the bikers who aren't familiar with it.
Yeah.
I guess the other question is something like that, did it say about signage? Are they putting up any signage?
Yeah, there generally are signs put up for rides like that.
Usually they tell you too.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
usually ask for that, especially if, it doesn't sound like it's an issue here, but some of the streets, the residents kind of blocked into their houses, so it's good if they know when the ride's coming through.
Well, I know
But this
there's preemptive signs, like with the running races, they say on such and such a day from these hours,
Yeah.
but also during the race. I mean, because when they put signs, usually you want to pin them into the ground. I've seen races where they spray paint the streets, so just be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have we
So,
had an
so,
event
so by the
on-
time we get to West Newbury, they're, probably
I
49.
just.
I don't think we have to worry about people being too tight together.
Oh, no, no.
Yeah, yeah. Wendy, the thing about people being blocked in their houses, by the time they get to West Newbury, they're probably
No,
30
that's
miles.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying. I
yeah.
don't think it's relevant to this particular
Yeah.
case, but
Actually, I think it's 32 miles into the ride when they cross the bridge.
But I would just be curious on signage, you don't want them sitting there spray painting arrows on poles.
Well, dang, no. it's-
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't, yeah, yeah, okay, it's good. I mean, they used to do, rides used to do these small,
Yeah.
6-inch long spray marks on pavement.
I think maybe it should be a requirement that somebody is present. I mean, it's easy enough to be on Zoom in case questions come up.
Yeah.
You know,
so you wanna take no action on it till we get
yeah,
I'm fine with that, sure.
when is their race date? That's what I'm-
End of June.
25th.
Our next meeting,
Now will
2
be
weeks from
the
tonight, so the
22nd. May 22nd.
fine,
That should
holding
be
off
enough
until we
time.
can get a representative to address the questions.
yeah.
So, I'm gonna, move that we take an item out of order. I think we're all done with this
Yeah.
one. So Mike and Pat, we might as well take care of, your topic instead of making you sit around and listen to us.
It's been interesting so far.
So, yeah, I move that we take item G out of order. Assume there's no objection to that. So this request for permission to modify the electric power source for existing roof mounted monitoring equipment at the Page School, from C10 Research and Education Foundation. So actually, if you want to sit up here by the mic, then you can, maybe you should describe, I obviously know, Mike, what you're doing because I came on over and visited and saw what you had for hardware and stuff. And
Okay,
but maybe you could explain for Wendy and Chris's sake.
I can. So my name is Mike Manser. I am the network administrator at the C10 Research and Education Foundation. I'm here with our chairman of the board, Pat Skibby, who is also a resident of West Newbury. And what one of our primary functions is that we monitor the radiation within the 10-mile emergency planning zone of Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant. We have 18 stations, 12 in Massachusetts and 6 in New Hampshire. Last year, we received a grant from the Mass Clean Energy Center to implement green technology at some of our locations in Massachusetts. And what it is, we're trying to get off dedicated power at a local host site, like we're plugged into the electrical power at the Page School. We're trying to get off of that. So what we're using is solar panels with a small battery setup that uses an inverter to power our equipment. They're 370-watt solar panels. They're 3 foot by 5 foot, and 3 of them together make an array for the Page School. We've already had it mapped out, the plan, and submitted the plan to the board. And this will generate enough power to keep our system running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, completely off the grid. It'll be self-sustaining. The battery power will, in case we have no sun for 10 to 12 days, our battery reserve power will keep us running until the sun comes back out. And it's such a quick turnaround on the charge capabilities that we can recharge our batteries within a few hours. Our total draw at a station's electrical input is only 25 watts. So it's like just running a small light bulb 24 hours a day. And that's all we need to do.
And where will the panels be located?
They'll be located on the roof of the Page School. We already mapped out an area near where we have equipment. Right now, we already have an anemometer and a radiation probe running up there. There's a weatherhead that we run our cabling through. So there's a location that we've mapped out that's right there. The roof itself is a membrane. All of our equipment will sit on an item known as a slip sheet, so it won't damage the membrane of the roof. Nothing will be attached physically to the roof. We will be using a weighted system to hold the solar panels down. Then inside the roof cavity where we have our monitoring equipment already running, we will set up our small little box that contains the batteries and an inverter for converting the power to AC power for the devices.
Any visual impact when you're on the ground?
None whatsoever. You won't see anything at all.
as the
Yeah, it's up
building?
in the flat roof part, you can.
Well, no, it depends where you place it. You place them at the front edge. I'm just,
Well, no, not in the flat roof up top, but the top of the roof is actually flat.
okay,
So, yeah, you have
Sure.
no visibility from down below.
how long does it take to install the system?
We'll be able to do it in a day. It's already been pre-assembled. We just have to disassemble it to get it up to the roof. And yeah,
This
A
is
full
a day when there's no school kids in the building or?
you know, it probably would be easier, but I've been there many times for service call when the kids are in the building. The elevator path is a little tricky because you have to take 2 elevators to get up to the roof. But it's very simple. I would like to try to plan on a day when there's no school or
That's
even
what I was
even if we
thinking.
bring the equipment in, we could actually, you know, bring all the equipment on site and do the installation the next day and we'll be out of.
No, you're the one doing the physical installation?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Done 5 of them already. This will be our final installation and we're hoping to meet this milestone.
and do you need a building permit? Is this been by the building?
No, we do
inspector?
not. We're not attaching anything to the building physically. And we're not changing any kind of structure or anything like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I mentioned it, you might want to mention, if you haven't already, I missed it, how long we've already had.
Yes, we've had 5 sites. We just finished our 5th site last week. But we've had our initial site was up since last September. So we've been doing this all along the entire winter to try and determine the best way to go about implementing this solar technology. It's a little bit difficult depending on, you know, what you get to choose for your orientation, your angle, and, you know, what your setup is and what you're allowed to put your solar panels on. So all of the 6 sites will be completely different from each other. So it'll really add a lot of the data into the research project that we're trying to determine if this kind of technology in a small scale is applicable to other entities like us that may want to try and use it in the future.
Mhm.
And like, how long have we had a site at the page?
We've had a monitoring site at the page for about 20 years.
Well, that was within a few years after, or within a decade at least after Seabrook opened up, started operating.
When Seabrook first opened up, we had, I think there were about 25 hosts that were actually using handheld Geiger counters. They would go outside at certain times of the
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
take a reading, write it down and call in, and that's how we started our, you know, radiation monitoring program.
Yeah,
But now everything is automated, it's all programmed, it runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Everything comes on automatically. We don't have to worry about any power anywhere because we're implementing our own power, so we're not dedicated to any host power. We're using hotspots with AT&T internet capabilities. We're working to get on the FirstNet internet communication network because they are for first responders and first responders supporters, which is what we got.
I know when I stopped over and talked with you, over in Amesbury, I'd asked you about the wind data that you have, because, you know, one of the instruments you have is an anemometer,
Yes.
and whether it was possible, and I have no idea if the school would have, you know, for, say, a science class, would have any value to them. But is that data, we talked a little bit about where that data actually resides, so there isn't on your site, and I'm not trying to create work, I'm just saying there's no point they could go to on your website where they could get real time, that data real time probably.
Real-time data is not offered to the general public,
Yeah,
only
okay.
because those that don't understand the data may get confused or actually even panic.
Right, no, and I was thinking only wind, yeah, within,
Right,
yeah,
You know, it's all combined
yeah,
to separate it would
Okay.
be extremely
okay,
difficult.
enough said.
For the host, the
Yeah.
host itself,
Yeah,
we can generate them a report, which
Yeah.
includes the wind data along with their radiation data.
yeah,
We are allowed to offer those to the site host owners, so I guess literally the town of Newbury, West Newbury would be eligible to receive that, so. The data is available.
okay, that's good to know, yeah, I don't know what we would do with it, but I was just thinking there might be some educational value, but it sounds like it wouldn't make sense, it's not really ready for that kind of access, so that's fine.
Yeah. In the early days, we used to actually have a laptop running this program on the 3rd floor out in front of the classroom, so that the kids could go by and see how it was monitoring radiation. But, you know, in a perfect world, we don't see anything happening, and it's a rather boring, tedious monitoring program, to watch nothing happen, but we're ready in case something does happen, and that's why we're here, we're
Yeah.
always there, we're always eyes on the target.
Yeah, great.
Any feedback from the Page School principal or Leanne or Mike? I saw that you had asked.
Mike was, before I was, totally supportive, I was familiar with the equipment and very familiar with the layout up there, so. Emily Pateri, the principal, was amenable. I think this school committee would need to approve it in addition to this board.
Yeah,
And it's my reading of the lease. It's not totally
Yeah.
clear, but I think that's a conservative reading of it. So I think the next step, assuming you refer it out, would be to go to the school committee, and Emily's fine with that.
okay.
Great, good. Yeah, so if nobody has any other questions, then I'd move that we approve the installation of renewable self-sufficient power system for C10's instrumentation at Page School.
Second,
And one last thing, all of our equipment is fully insured, and it's assembled such that we can take it out to at a moment's notice, the school decides, or the town decides, hey, we don't want that there, we're gonna do something with the roof, we can pull it back off in a day or two, so it's, that's how we're building.
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye. Great, thanks a lot.
All right,
Yeah,
so,
sorry it took 4 months.
so my next step is I'll send that over to Justin Bartholomew, the superintendent. He'll get it on the school committee's agenda, and I'll copy you on that.
Now, this is the Pentucket School.
Correct. Yeah, since they leased the building.
And you know with us?
Yes,
Yeah,
you make
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole lot of you.
No need to torture anyone.
Keep watching online.
Right,
Yeah.
hundreds.
Thank you very much.
Here, see you later. Bye-bye.
Does the fire department have something up there that they're?
They do, yeah, they're actually moving, I don't think it's moved yet, but they're gonna be moving all their instrumentation, all their, their emergency communication equipment that, either, I think it still is on the tower, I mean, we funded that.
Yes.
We've appropriated funds for it, but the instrumentation, or the antennas and the amplifiers and stuff are, well, the antennas are up on that big tower,
Yeah.
which is somewhat decrepit at this point. And the electronics is down in the Parks and Rec building. So when they transition that, everything will be the antennas will be on the roof, and the electronics will be somewhere inside of the building.
Okay, so this is not gonna conflict with.
No, then that's why I think, Mike took a look at it,
Yeah,
took a look at it,
Okay,
it's good. It really isn't that big, what they're doing is not taking up
5
that
by
much.
10,
Yeah, yeah.
so I don't see item D in the packet.
No, I just wanted it for discussion really with the new board member, just so everyone knew kind of how, the chair sets the agenda. And just because we've done things a certain way to this point, doesn't mean we have to do them the same way going forward. So I wanted to include this just
Okay,
to talk about, so, if Chris or anyone on the board wants something on the agenda, just to talk through how has that gone, you could. You could let me know, and I would work with the chair to set the agenda. That's typically how it's been done. There is no prohibition in the open meeting law to board members corresponding, amongst yourselves as to what you want on the agenda. You can't deliberate, but I don't think there's any problem if a board member emails the chair directly and says, hey, I'd like this on the next agenda. The way it's typically happened, there's no, hard and fast rule. It varies, but typically, board members will let me know. I put together a list. I work with the chair to firm up the agenda. So, but I thought it'd be helpful just to talk about how that process works.
And that would streamline it a bit, not having to, I know I've always made a point of sending it to you directly, but it does make sense. There's not a problem with that as long as we're not deliberating. So
Correct.
that might.
It's definitely helpful for me to know, as you all know, I keep a list, meeting, like if I know something's coming up in August, I'll put it in now, so I don't forget when August comes. So I'm always keeping a running
Yeah.
list of future
Yeah,
meetings.
it would make sense for us to
Helpful know.
CC you, but.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to know because typically with a Monday meeting, the prior Tuesday, I would send out a list to the chair. And then typically on, Wednesday, we connect either by, phone or in person. It's different with every chair. I mean, and then typically sometime Wednesday, we'll either, meet or talk by phone and kind of generally finalize it, but we haven't typically posted the agenda until late Thursday. That allows some flexibility if things come in late. It allows, it doesn't tie the board's hands to consider something that comes in late. And then we typically post right at the end of the workday, Thursday for the meeting. By that point, some of the packet materials have already been put together. But typically the packets are finalized, Thursday and Friday, and we try to get those out before the weekend. So one thing I talked with Chris about on the phone last week, which I think is, is interesting. He said, what about, closing the agenda a day earlier to provide, so it's not like crunch time getting the packets done. That's something that, it's really going to be up to the chair, how you want to go about setting the agenda. I think that cuts both ways. That could help. But on the other hand, what I told Chris was a lot of the things that come on the agendas are things the board has to deal with anyway. So if they get pushed back 2 weeks, that doesn't really buy you anything. It actually makes it, then you're dealing with, because you explain to people.
It makes it more difficult for you to pull the documents together and get them out and everything. That's my concern.
It is, yeah, but most of, I think probably 85% of what's on a typical board agenda either comes from the board or comes from my office. While there are things that come from other parties, most of the agenda items are things that we ourselves are driving. So it's really a matter of, how the chair wants to do it. And that's something, you and I will work, obviously work together on. I think there's, I've seen one thing that I think is, I'd like to rethink right now. I think we're putting updates on things on almost every meeting. So that does create a certain amount of time to kind of prepare like bi-weekly updates. If we said more like, we're going to provide quarterly updates or monthly or bi-monthly, so there's not so much time preparing for packets rather than actually doing work. That's something that I think is could be helpful, and it could be helpful to some of the objectives of getting alignment with some of the committees. If we we're strategic about it and said like, on a set schedule, we're going to be talking about things, open space, mill ponds, like related topics, and try to create a center of gravity. So on those agendas, maybe we're more focused on a certain set of issues instead of, because right now I think we're covering a lot of ground on every agenda. And, it does sometimes feel like we put at a staff level a huge effort into preparing these packets and preparing for the meetings. And, we wonder, is anyone actually watching the meetings, or are we doing all this work for an audience of 3?
Right.
All at the expense of other work we could be doing. So there's a lot that I think with a new chair, there's always an opportunity to revisit how we do things and do we want.
So when you're referring to the updates, you're talking about the town manager update part of the agenda, or because everything else are typically things that we kind of have to deal with.
Correct, yeah.
But maybe
Yeah.
not this meeting. I mean, maybe it's not necessary to have.
That's right,
multiple
yeah, I
meetings.
mean, I think we're very like, we hear something, we put it right on the next agenda, and we just, but at the same time, you look at over the course of, every meeting year round, you won't find a single light agenda, so that's why I was like, you don't really get anything by pushing it off, because the next meeting is gonna be packed too, like there's just a lot of business that comes before the board. One thing we've talked about is consent agenda. That's something that definitely bigger communities do for things like meeting minutes, for things like committee appointments, for things like sometimes special event permits, or liquor licenses, used car licenses that have come up often. But there are certain things that lend themselves well to like a consent agenda.
And what is that?
That's where it's a single item that lists as many sub items as it wants, but it's taken up in a single vote.
Mhm.
So a motion to approve the consent agenda would be a motion to approve everything listed there. And then if any member of the board wanted to pull something out for debate, they could. But if something is truly routine and just a matter of something the board has to vote, it can dispense of, some number of items with a single vote. So it's just a little bit more efficient. We talked about it, I think, a year and a half ago with regard to town meeting. I think Casey was suggesting,
Right.
which I think where town meeting is. I don't think that's a great idea, but for a regular board meeting, if you look at the city council's agenda at Newbury Port, the first thing is consent agenda. There's a half a page of like 20 different things that they're dispensing with a single vote.
So if you had a question on one, like tonight, the event permit, if you have a question, you would pull the whole thing out anyway, or?
You pull that single item out.
Yeah, it's nothing we could institute right away because the culture of the board is you're very hands-on with a lot of things. And so, I think in order for things like special event permits to become consent agenda type items, you're gonna need to know that at the staff level, everything you want done is done. And right now, where that particular function has moved around a couple of times in terms of who's responsible for it, I don't think we're quite there yet. I think we're getting, we want to get there, but it's just been,
Okay,
that's the kind of thing I personally don't pay any attention to the special event permits, because I got 1,500 other things that I am
Right.
focused on, and I
and
need
those
to.
don't typically take that much time.
No, they don't, but it does all add up.
And one thing I was wondering, a lot of the town manager updates, those come last, and by 10:30 or 11, like we're beat. And
Yeah.
I don't know if putting those up front and having just 15 minutes or a set amount of time would make sense, what you guys think. I think those are important for people to know what's being worked on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, I'd like to see the meetings get condensed down till 10 o'clock. And I think it was school committee originally, and if a meeting was to go after 10, you had to revote to stay in session and go. It sort of is a motivational way to
Mhm.
have a goal and do it, and not that, want to put the town manager date at the end, but you put something at the end that's not necessarily time sensitive, so that if you didn't get to it, you could, as Angus says, you're always gonna get to it, but
Right.
just
So
to
we
try to
just
keep the
roll to the
meeting,
next.
if you said that we've got 15 minutes left, let's go till 10:15, that's something we can do, but unfortunately, one school committee is going to midnight, we even had one that carried over into the next day.
Yeah, we've done.
Yeah, that's insane.
That was.
You won't see me
that
as
was
tomorrow.
accept- Yeah.
I will guarantee that, at 12:01, I'll be gone.
Yeah.
Hopefully by 10 is what I would like to see as a goal, if we can all find a way to do that somehow.
Yeah, I guess to me, everything here are things that we have to deal with one way or another, and. If we kick it to the next meeting, then it just opens up the next agenda more,
Well, but like that one event permit thing, we should have
Yeah.
said, hey, we don't have these answers, there's
Yeah.
no rep, kick it out, done, end of discussion, we could have saved, 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there, if you do it on each, one that's appropriate, like the Boy Scout thing, his submittal was perfect, it was.
Yeah.
All his information was there, it was a really nice job, but that made it easy.
I think for the updates, I think, one thing that, we could work toward, and I told Chris, it's gonna take 3 or 4 meetings before there's any real change.
Well, yeah, the updates particularly would not normally be this many.
Correct,
Right.
but if you look, a lot of these are recurring things, and going forward, they will be. So I
Yeah.
think one thing, just a kind of commentary I offered to Chris last week was, I think that we're trying to do a lot with these agendas.
Mhm.
We're trying to get the board's business done, but we're also trying to use them to get the word out.
Right,
I don't think it's effective at getting the word out, because I don't think people are paying attention by that time of night. And I think we're all kind of burnt out, like we're not, even if I give you an update, it's not what. So what I was just kind of thinking out loud when he and I talked last week, is there some way where, if the board's meeting every other week, maybe in the off week, maybe I get to where I'm doing a bi-weekly, more of a public update on all these, whether
Yeah.
through the web or social media. And then that update gets into your packet, and if there's anything you want to talk about, you agenda it, but otherwise it's just a written update, and that way, you're fully briefed. But really, unless you're taking votes on all of these things, it's really more FYI.
Mhm.
And so it's just, but I just kind of observed that, after, been doing this here in West Newbury a lot of years, I think that we're trying to use these meetings to keep people up, but I don't think they're paying attention.
Mhm.
So I kind of observed to Chris, if I could take the same time that I put toward these meetings and do more on like sending things around to 1,000 people on our email list, that would be a really good use of time.
Yeah.
But right now, we don't have more time than
Your
you
updated
know.
email letter that you are purporting would be a good idea. That also updates us, and we're making a lot of this, so it's one shot, and it'll entertain the whole crowd we have here too.
Yeah, and one thing I've talked with staff about going back a couple of years, and now that we've, got, better staffing levels as of the last month or so, and really as of like 2 weeks ago with the new assistant town clerk. One of the things I would really like to do, and I've just never been able to do because we haven't had the time and the bandwidth. But for each of these, we started to do it, each of these items that are kind of higher profile projects. Right now, for someone to track that, they'd find like bits and pieces in meeting packets covering years, and they'd have to do their own sleuthing. And, we started on the town website to do these kind of project pages. But we really haven't built it out. Actually, I don't even, I don't want to, well, anyhow, yes, but yeah, town projects, here it is. So, where for these handful of things, we want to do more where we're having like a place people can go to on the website to learn, and that we would keep that current. The problem is, it takes a certain amount of staff time to build this out. It takes a certain amount of staff time to keep this current. Up to this point, we have not been able to do that. But if we could get to where we're doing that, and these pages are reliable for the dozen or so kind of high profile, high public interest projects, it's like, because we're putting a lot of effort into the packets, that if we put the same thing toward keeping the website updated, but it's hard to do both. That's the thing. It's like we're just stretched very thin, and you take a project like the Middle Street Bridge, I was briefing the town planner on that late today because she offered to help us with the MassWorks grant. I was like, great, that's great, we need the help. But I just in the last 3 business days, there have been like major new developments, including some information today I'll share tonight that I got learned today, in terms of the mayor's proposal for next year. Like, it's just so dynamic that it's hard for me to keep staff briefed and then for them to do the work, because it's changing so quickly that it often ends up being me or another senior staff person, whether that was Wayne or Christine Wallace or town planner, or Michelle for her projects. Like, we want to get more of the kind of project managers getting the information direct out to the public. It's just been hard to do that while kind of keeping up with, 40 plus select board meetings a year is an enormous amount of time that goes into these meeting packets. And I do question, are we getting a return on that in terms of the public really understanding what we're doing? And I think we could do it a little bit differently.
So then that would mean you just take this off the agenda?
No, I think your suggestion of putting it, maybe there's a written, 2 to 4 page memo, like a town manager report that's covering all the projects, put that much earlier on the agenda. And if it's nothing to talk about, you just say, know, yeah, we've got a report, it's on it. But if it's something you want to talk about.
Kind of like the town planner report that you've been including.
Correct,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I think it should be earlier on the agenda, because I think, part of why the reporter covers things, like by the time we're getting to the interesting stuff, it's 3.5 hours into the meeting.
Right.
I shouldn't say that, it's all interesting, but
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. So that would come directly after, we try to do the project or the permit approvals first thing.
Yeah, I would think that anything where other people have to be present, we should try to, out of respect for them, let them get on with their other business. But yeah, definitely earlier on would make sense.
So would that really cut down the amount of work you're investing now? If it's just moved to the beginning of the agenda, it's still
I think it's not something there's not like one fell swoop that's gonna make a big difference, because if there was, we would have made those changes by now.
Right.
It's, I think if I can get to where we have enough people contributing to I'd like to have, kind of a standing list of priority projects that we're providing updates on regularly. And right now, we have new projects added every day or two, not from this board, but just from the community or from needs that come up. Or just from, so it's kind of, we're always scrambling instead of having like, these are the 12 top priority projects. It's been hard to have that focus because there's so much going on. So I think if we can invest in something like the website and keeping that current, and then, that's just, maybe we just send a link, or maybe we, print out the PDF. I don't know. Because I feel like the updates we're providing the board, if you just take as a premise, there's finite resources, finite time. If we could somehow redivert some of that time toward public updates, which you are also seeing.
Right.
It's just a better return on investment.
Yeah,
We
I
all
agree.
want to get the word out, and I think we're trying very hard, but I don't think it's working that well. I think the average, awareness of some of what we're doing is probably quite low. And I could point to, 24 memos over the last 2 years, but like, no one's browsing or no one's pulling up the packets, and
Right.
I'd love it if they did. I wish they would, but they're not. So we have to kind of spoon feed people more if we want them to know that, what's going on in some of these things.
Well, I think a town manager update could be really valuable, I mean, for the public, just like a newsletter or something.
Yeah,
like that,
yeah. Yeah.
And then literally, if that came in as a lump agenda item,
Just a
we
standard
read through it
agenda.
ahead of time, and
Yeah.
say, I've got one question, instead of, you can update yourself by reading it, but if you got a question on, town hall painting, you can ask that in the meeting.
Yeah.
I think that'll really expedite that component.
Mhm. I just didn't want to make more work for you.
Yeah, it's a fine, it's a balance, but for instance, I mean, take Middle Street Bridge, where there's so much documentation. Right now, most of it's in packets. But we haven't had the bandwidth to have like a good, reliable project summary page. So if we were uploading that same material to more of a page, and then the public could go to that page, and you could go to that page and know that that's gonna have, everything you're gonna wanna know about that project. Just to kind of get a recurring return on that investment of time, because that's now a resource that people can consult. I've talked to staff, could we do something with even like a blog feature on the town website? It has the capability. But you don't want to start something you can't see through. But if you start something and then you can't monitor, that's terrible. You don't want to do that. So we haven't done anything like that because we don't have the bandwidth to see it through. We could start it, but then it tails off and no one's looked at it for 10 weeks, and then it's worse than not having it in the first place. So we want to be thoughtful about what we do so we don't start something we can't finish. But I think the basic idea is to try to take at least some of the time that goes toward, the meetings, and try to get those updates, more proactively, sent around via the web and social media. Or even press releases, those kind of, which, we only do those very, very occasionally.
So do you want to think more about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some great samples, from other towns, and even some of the work I've done in prior towns, I think is more, it's just more focused than here, where it just seems kind of like we're doing a mix of continuing things, but always new things. There's just always new initiatives. So it's hard to reinforce the priorities with support staff. If I myself am pulled in 100 directions, it's hard for me to kind of help staff, stay on track with what the highest priorities are. We constantly are knocked off our game by the latest crisis.
Mhm. So what did you mean by communications here?
Really, the email, who's gonna manage how the select board email account is handled, which I think has been great. I would say I don't know how it's been because I don't. But if there's correspondence in or out that the full board might be aware of, there ought to be a way to share that doesn't invite deliberation, but just shares it with the understanding that it's not intended for.
Yeah, I mean, if we get something from, generally speaking, if I get something from the select board email, I don't respond. It's a one-way street.
Right.
And I think that's legit and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, typically you're copied on everything the select board email,
Right,
and you
right.
typically forward it.
Sometimes I do, but I don't always know, I don't know if you're forwarding things to them and I don't know.
No, I don't.
Okay,
I
so
don't.
that's something where.
On rare occasion you do, very rare.
Yeah,
But,
I think typically if you're not copied on it, I would send it to you and ask you to forward,
Okay,
but.
so yeah, we can work that out, but my thought was if I'm a resident out in the community and I send something to the select board, I'll probably assume that the full board knows that. So.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I think we had that conversation early on and I was told that.
Well, because you don't want
Yeah.
to inadvertently invite deliberation, but that's where if all three board members know the ground rules.
Right.
That if you receive something from that, it is just FYI, it is not to reply, it is not,
But if you do that, it would be best if you BCC'd us. So that, then we don't become part of, even though we might not respond, I don't think we want to.
Invite.
Invite them to then start directing to us as opposed to the select board email.
It's really a matter for you as a board to figure out how you want what level of transparency isn't the right word.
We had this conversation, maybe not this past year, but the year before, and it was decided that I would just handle it. That I don't want to be updated.
Yeah.
So if that, I don't know, Chris, if you.
I think it's a one source handling, and if it becomes an issue that's so great, then it becomes an agenda item.
I think that's right.
Where it ends.
Yeah.
Okay,
If somebody has a question, you can answer it for the board.
yeah,
If they wanna debate, you want something we've done, then it's like, please come to our next meeting.
Yeah.
It should be that simple. And I think it's great we have the chair that you can make the decision to put that on the agenda.
mhm.
So,
Okay.
I think that's
Do you
great.
that'll work?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the way it's worked to this point has been great. I just, like I said, with new board, it's just good to
Yeah,
reaffirm.
There have
we
been
did it.
times where you copied us, when it was Archie May, and I can't think of what topic.
It's been
but there-
pretty infrequent. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you get
yeah,
a lot of
no.
traffic.
Right, yeah, no, it's been quite infrequent, but when you've done it, it's been valuable.
Mhm.
So I guess, I don't want to just throw that out and not have that as a potential option.
Yeah.
When all I know is that I would not respond to you, to that address so that we wouldn't deliberate.
And I wouldn't respond if you sent something and then whoever sent it to you then starts a dialogue with us, because that would start a whole nother conversation. It's gotta be one source in and one source out.
Right.
Yeah, we would just forward it to you if I was
Yeah.
gonna. share.
Oh, okay, that
Yeah.
works.
All right, I think I got the direction on
All
that.
right.
And then the other thing I put in network access, I meet with Chris tomorrow, he'll be set up with the laptop, Archie dropped it off last week. So he'll be all set up, and one thing that I think could be helpful, we're gonna do this with Chris one-on-one tomorrow, but I think with any one of you one-on-one, or even have a little in-service, but to help make sure you all are aware of, and I think you are fully aware of the network server, what you can find and where. But I think the more you all have access, know what you have access to is great. Because I think we could, it's just, it's a great way to. Like I'm thinking about with Chris being new, and so all these issues and all this backup, and he's getting a packet with 120 pages or whatever. And if I don't, if I were you, I might think, well, geez, I want 3-ring binders, and I want like a binder for this, a binder for this, and a binder for that. If there's a way we can reconfigure how things are organized in the network server. So we start to have basically like research libraries for different of these topics. So that again, these packets don't just like, fade away, but actually become a durable value because the memos get, like uploaded to the network server. So that way they're there. And instead of right now, I think we're all individually, we've all got our own file storage systems and indexing and so forth. If there's a way we can do that collectively, that might save all of us some time. And now that I have, Rebecca as an assistant, I actually have some more support to actually take some of these ideas and try to actually make them happen. Which I think could be helpful to all of us, to get some, durable value, because like, some of what Chris asked for, earlier tonight in executive session, I have all of that, but I gotta find it and send it, and I can do that, but it's like, right now, we're not getting a cumulative benefit from all this work, it's like.
Yeah, sometimes I remember we discussed something and it takes me 30 minutes to go through all the old meeting,
Right.
packets to try to find
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
So the session with Jake tomorrow, is there a way to record that or?
It's not gonna be that level, I mean, it's really just, and we'll meet for an hour, it's, but I could work with Jake to do, and with Rebecca to do some, because I'm, at the same time, at the staff level, we're setting up some new systems to reorganize the network server for some of the staff sharing to try, because right now, it's 90% of what's on there is kind of digital detritus that might be 10 years old, and it distracts from what's important. What's important is really important, but there's so much stuff that's just accumulated over the course of 15 years, and no one's ever had the bandwidth to organize it. We're trying to actually impose some order on that. So I think if we can do the same thing at the board level, we could do like a little session just and really more collaborative. Like, how can we make this network server work for all of us? In a way that we get a cumulative benefit from all these memos and all this content that's created. It pains me to, sometimes I'll find myself writing a memo and I'm like, geez, I think I wrote a memo like 3 or 4 months ago, but it's quicker to just write a memo than to search through my own records of like, and the one time I did, you see the mistake, it's never got faced my memos, but this one I did pull up an old memo and sure enough.
I wasn't even gonna bring it up and Chris.
But that's like very rare. I don't really do that. And the one time I did, because I was like, oh, I do one of these every election. I write a memo about reorganization. So I dusted off on all of them. I didn't do my own work. And there you go.
So I still cannot print from my laptop.
Okay.
I think you're the same. I don't know.
You know
if
what?
laptops are aging out or.
Yeah, it could be. I haven't even tried for a while.
Yeah, I've been through a couple sessions with Jake and he can't resolve it. And I'm pretty sure Archie was having issues with his computer. So just telling you.
I like paper, don't worry.
Yeah.
All right. So I will, I'll talk to Jake. We can talk to him about when they're scheduled for replacement and whether they're nearing the end of their useful life.
Okay.
So the highlights on item E, this is vacancies or ones that are up for reappointment.
These are all up for reappointment and the highlights are just the vacancies.
Okay.
And so without getting into specifics, this was on the agenda just to hear from the board. How do you envision the reappointment process going? And then we can get some dates of the calendar and send around some dates to everyone.
Well, there was discussion about, do we want to give more instruction or direction to committees? And there's a lot of sense in that. I guess the question is, how much bandwidth do we have to figure out the degree of detail that we need to get into for that?
Isn't there a document where you have, if there's a charge for the committee?
Yep.
I mean, could we work from that?
Yeah.
I mean, It seems like that.
A lot of
would be
committees
free.
don't have a formal charge, as you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And some of them do, but it's actually in the bylaw, like the finance committee, that's defined by bylaw. There's others, capital improvements committee defined by bylaw. So some are in bylaws, some are charges, some are by statute, you know? Not so much the ones you appoint, but you know, Board of Health, Planning Board, Concom, they're defined by statute who they are and what their authorities are. So it's, yeah,
So-
yeah.
So maybe if we start with the ones that aren't defined by statute and don't have a charge. Or ones that haven't met for a while and then, you know, maybe they could be discontinued.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, so two committees that I'm, you know, meet with, you know, typically monthly, you know, energy and sustainability and climate change resiliency. There's no charge for either of those committees. I don't believe there is. We did finally, you know, sort of determine committee composition back a year and a half or so ago. Was it last year or was it 2 years ago? I don't
2 years
recall.
ago, 'cause I stepped
Okay,
down
okay.
when I was elected.
Okay,
Yeah.
you know, but those have mission statements on the web pages.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, so which have not been approved by the select board.
That's my
So-
question, whose mission statement, the committee's
Right.
mission statement, not the select board.
Yeah,
So the select board either has to endorse it or not and say, that's not what we thought, or
right,
the other curiosity with this list. First of all, these are all positions turning over in 2023. So you got some of these committees have 9 people on them, they're all turning over instantly. It should be a revolving, I would assume, process. And then you've got, I think when we're gonna do this, we're gonna see each committee and all the positions, because like the FinCom, you've just got the 2 positions listed. You should see members in there.
And we do that when it's time for reappointment.
Okay, that's
We
what I'm
just
saying.
did this, I had Jim run a report of everyone due for reappointment.
Yeah,
So
but a lot of
that-
these
that we-
committees-
this is all part of a larger database with every
The
member.
cultural council, all those, what are there, 5 or 6, all at the same time. I just is an odd.
that's a large committee, isn't it?
We got a lot of them that are large. Energy and sustainability is 9, climate change resiliency is 9. On the back, Mill Pond Committee 7. I mean. That's, I'm getting to my next point is, when you have 9 people and you want to fill a committee, if you had 2 or 3 of those people on another committee, you wouldn't have vacancies. So I think some of these committees, I don't know why you need 9 people on a committee unless you're building a highway.
Mhm.
well, so Chris, you know, if you're not involved with what the committee is doing, and there's never been 9 in either of those committees, but there is work that could be done, but there isn't bandwidth with the people that are currently on them. And that's why when those committees, when there was composition, you know, when we defined composition 2 years ago, we went with a larger number, thinking that if there are people who are actually interested in participating.
Oh, it's nice to accommodate them, yeah, but I think it's,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is I think you're stretching you and all these other good people a little too thin. You know, I don't know. I would rather see all committees properly populated. 9's a big committee to manage too.
Oh, and I don't know if either of those committees will ever get to, the fact that they're both at 6 right now is remarkable and it's really good.
That is, yeah.
Because there are people who are participating and contributing. You know, oddly, of course, you know, there's a core of 4 that are in both committees.
But to have these large committees have 3 or 4 vacancies.
Yeah.
like, what's the point of having so many members, you know, if they're not filled?
I mean, if you're in the working process, like we're in the comprehensive plan committee, and needed people to work,
Yeah,
it was good to have a large committee. But if it's just a standing committee that does, you know, sort of the same things, you know, like finance committee is 6, and we even discussed if that was a
I don't
danger.
understand that. Why would you have an even number of people?
Well, that's why we discussed it. It
well,
wasn't,
I thought there were 7, are there 6?
It's 6 in the bylaw.
Okay.
it's a dangerous
Yeah,
number,
yeah,
'cause we
that
did
is
run up
right.
against it at one
Yeah,
point. The vote was like 2 to 3 to 1. It's like, well, how does that, you know,
Yeah,
you know, so.
so maybe along with the charge, we look at the composition, you know, how many people, I mean, what other things should we be?
Well, I
looking
think
at?
it's reasonable to stagger the dates of each appointment so that they roll over sequentially, so you always have some historical knowledge remaining on the committee, hopefully.
Well, it depends what the length of appointment is. Some of them are annual,
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
you know, and some are 3 years. I mean, that's another thing we should look at.
I thought most committees were generally 3-year appointments.
A lot of them are 1 year.
yeah, I think for the statutory committees,
That's-
I think for the statutory committees,
They tend to be
they
longer.
tend to be longer,
Yeah.
but for,
For an appointed,
yeah.
that's again, if we're gonna address it as an entity, I think we ought to look at that. I, 1 year appointment, I'm not even sure I'd want to get on the committee unless it had, the page school study to get here, boom. But energy sustainability, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be around for a long time in this town. And so I think to have I'd want to know that I'm seated on that committee for 3 years if I'm investing to really get some progress, wouldn't you?
The people who are on it, I think, are not,
Yeah, they're in there for the long term.
yeah, right, but at the same time, people may want flexibility, and if you say, well, you gotta go on for a 3-year term, obviously, anybody can resign at any point in time if they want to, but,
Okay,
I don't know, you know what, I mean, we could, so,
So we need to figure out how we're gonna, we can't
Right.
tackle all these committees before
right,
reappointment.
right, yeah,
So
right.
should we establish a priority list maybe of, do half this year and half next year, or I mean, does it have to be done concurrent with reappointment?
No,
I
no,
mean, if we start the process and
yeah,
identify ones that seem like they need the most work.
yeah, I mean, I think, Wendy, what you said a minute ago is good, I did start working back in 2018 on a spreadsheet of all the committees. Do they have a charge? Where was it established? How long has it been there, and I got that to a certain point, but that's still always been a working document.
Yeah.
So I think working with, the town clerk's office and our new assistant town clerk, who's a very diligent researcher. I think, I can set him to work with Jim. I think over the next, week and a half, they can take that draft and really polish it. So you have a good starting point of what's the composition, what are the charge, all of that. And then you can decide which of those kind of leave well enough alone, or which of those, you might see a reason to rethink either the composition or the term of appointment.
So is that
or-
reasonable to do it for the next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
No.
we're having the appointment, right?
No,
But yeah,
but
to
if we have
continue
the
the discussion.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
If we have the
Just need to-
spreadsheet, we could identify ones that we're interested in looking at and
Yeah.
then maybe going forward.
I think that's good. Yeah, I'll put that on for the next one. And
another thing on appointments, I think we have to find a way to encourage more people to volunteer.
Mhm.
Whether it's an email blast or the signboard out front, or somebody here can post on the 2 Facebook pages or something, because even town meeting was kind of odd. They were there, but they weren't there, they say both the whole $18 million budget, no questions. Everybody's just kind of riding the crest of this wave, but there's work to be done. And I mean, being on finance committee, it was a lot of work, but it was enjoyable to do it in a strange way. And I think people would find that there's a benefit to participating.
Mhm.
I think somehow we have to reach out to more people to get them involved. So,
Yeah, no, I agree.
I hear that at almost every meeting. Rick always says that. I will just say, having worked in a lot of towns, the level of volunteerism in my observation is quite high in this town. And it's always great to have more, but I don't think it's as dire as you say. I think one of the issues is that when you have a lot of committees that I agree are unnaturally large,
Mhm.
So,
it makes it seem like there's all these vacancies, but if you look at, I mean, just to pick one, the Mill Pond Committee has a lot of active members. That is a 100% functional
it's got
committee.
7 listed with 3 vacancies.
Exactly. So like the idea that that's anything less than a fully robust,
Yeah,
it's a great committee. Like,
Maybe
there's
shrink
no-
it down to 5.
Exactly, or I'll call, so like there's more vacancies, partly because I think some of the committee sizes are really, in my opinion, unnaturally large, and it's not
Yeah.
really
Well,
warranted.
my reflex reaction comes probably from the FinCom, because when I get on that committee evaporated, 5 people were gone instantly, so.
Right when you joined.
yeah,
No, they were already
You
leaving.
weren't suggesting
They
you
were,
take it first.
they were already leaving when I got appointed. That was a little bit of a surprise that nobody gave me the heads up on
Yeah,
that.
I thought you did that.
No, thank you, no. So, and then to get people to step up to do it was a recruiting process.
Yes.
And I think the FinCom is an incredibly valuable committee, so that was, and most of these committees, like climate change resiliency, yeah, that's pretty important too, going forward. So we need to get people involved. How that happens, I don't know, but again, yeah, when you see like the sustaining energy and there's 3 vacancies, okay, I take that with a grain of salt.
One thing we're working on, it's kind of one of these things in the background, and I don't have any idea when it's gonna come to fruition, but we've got multiple departments who've been working for, a couple of months on. We'd like to put together kind of like a welcome packet that would be sent to new residents, but also is something that could be sent around to every household in town once we have something that's really good. But to take, if you look at like the production value of the COA newsletter, letters are excellent. They're so readable, they're well formatted, they're clear. Similar assessing did the one a year or so ago on the tax abatement programs where they really put in a lot of effort to do that. What we'd like to do is something that touches on a whole host of town services from, trash to dog licenses to everything. Try to have input from a lot of different departments to have like a little flyer that would include, committee appointments and opportunities to get involved. It could then be mailed around every year or every 2 years. So, Jim and Rebecca were working on that, but then we both had on the ship. It's not like a specific, it's just something we're kind of aspiring toward. We don't have like a specific plan to produce it. It's just we're chipping away as time allows. But I personally am a big fan of like every now and then mailing something instead of just relying too much on email because people tune out and they don't subscribe.
I did think of that when you were talking about your update letter.
Yeah.
It's worth mail, I mean, like you say, the COA letter, when you get that, I get mad that they actually sent it to me because I don't feel like I'm old enough to get one of them, but I did read it.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's great. I do think like a mail, newsletter, like once or twice a year can go a long way and really reach people that you'll never reach through email.
If you're to try to do that on a more general basis for committees, it would be interesting to just have just a thumbnail about the committee on it, and then have a QR code that went to that committee's website.
Yeah,
And so that, I don't know, it seems like that might cause people to respond more than, if they have to read a lot of content in a mailer to get what's there,
that's
then
great.
they may not go through it very thoroughly.
Yeah,
But if there's just a thumbnail about the particular committee and then a QR code, and then, I wonder what that is, and but maybe it'd work, maybe it wouldn't. The only way to know would be to try it.
All right, that sounds like a good plan.
yeah, good.
Page school study.
Yeah, so this, right at the top on page 29 of your packet, so, obviously when this was issued, we didn't know we were gonna be, losing our DPW director. But is a really good RFQ. It lays out a very, very specific process to follow, for review of the, responses. Which I believe are due at the end of May, if I recall.
I think it's May 26th.
We're working right now, I'm working with
19th.
Christine on the addendum. I got a draft today and I told her I'd turn around my comments by the end of tomorrow, so we'll issue an addendum tomorrow. But anyhow, so I just wanted to pin down this kind of advisory group. It specifies town staff, Kentucky, a select board member and a resident of the town, as well as the chief procurement officer. So I think we talked about this the last meeting of 5 would be the right number. So I just wanted to try to, I guess, just get you to say who on the board would participate, and then as a resident of the town, ideally Elisa, so
If
she's
she's
interested.
Yeah, if she's interested and available.
Was it Nathan Kelly on the original?
He was, but he didn't come to any of the meetings, and he did respond to some of my emails, and he was interested, he appreciated being included, but, and he got all of the mail materials, but he didn't come to anything, so.
Okay.
I know he's been very busy.
He's one of those guys who took off on a thing called and left me hanging. But he was, the 3 months I was there with him, where he was fantastic.
Yeah, that is.
So if you could reel him in on something, he would be good.
So are you interested in continuing on this, or do you need a break?
I can continue on it unless Chris is interested in jumping in.
I don't think this is the one for me. I'm interested in jumping in, but I'll fill you in sometime later.
Okay.
Yeah, this wouldn't be the one for me. If you want to do it, if you said absolutely not, I would do it.
No, that's fine.
If you've already
You
started.
have a history with it, so. that
Yeah,
you see
yeah,
what
no,
it is.
and yeah, I recognize that. I only suggested Chris because I don't know what you're looking for, to take on. And, you have history in, construction related type stuff. So, but I probably have a little bit of that too. So,
If you're already on it.
yeah, that's fine. So I'll stick with it.
Can I ask how many people showed up at the sidewalk?
There's 4 or 5 vendors.
I'd be testing my memory. I want to say it was 5.
Yeah, probably 5.
But
Okay.
yeah, so in that.
So yeah, reasonable response.
Yeah, not a huge number, but I think they seem
Pretty
to.
good. I think there was some, I think there were over 20 firms that requested the RFQ, so we did hope for more. But, but I think it was definitely a respectable turnout.
Are they precluded from bidding on the project if they didn't show?
Yes.
So you had a sign-in sheet?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of town staff, obviously Christine Wallace will be closely involved as a project manager, but I do wonder if we might want to have the building inspector on the selection where.
That seems like a good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
He's been pretty involved to this point, and
Yeah.
including, preparing the scope and all of that. We did not include him in the site visit, but yeah, I think he'd be great to have. He's gonna need to have a good working relationship with the consultant. And then the resident, who I can ask Elisa if she's interested, and if she's not.
Do we want to have a backup in case she's not, or
Sure, yeah.
we don't have to wait 2 weeks?
Yep.
Any thoughts? Any other non-associated
I
residents?
would go to Nathan Kelly if you could convince him, because he's got the financial background.
Mhm.
I believe he's also a teacher at Whittier.
Yeah.
He's got some institutional knowledge. And again, I
Yeah.
thought very highly of him as a
Mhm.
thoughtful person.
Yeah, maybe because this is a short-term assignment.
Yeah, it's really a very short-term
Yeah.
thing, yeah. Because once we get someone under contract, that's gonna be a much more, everyone who wants to be involved can be involved with that.
So that's all the feedback.
Yep, that's all I need. That's great, thank you.
Do the schools have a representative on it?
Yes, yeah.
It's Emily, right?
Well, we would hope it would be Greg.
Oh, right, okay.
But that's
yeah,
where he's retired, that's really gonna be up to, Emily's gonna be closely involved. Up to this point, Chris, we've been working really very closely with the principal, with the facility staff, both current and retired. And keeping Justin and his office in the loop on it, but it's been more Emily and Bob Danforth and Greg Haddon. We already took up item G, so we're on to item H.
Appointment of temporary chief procurement officer. I didn't really see the ambiguity that you thought was there. I thought it was pretty clear that it would try to be, given that we have a town manager, that it would be the town manager.
To appoint or to serve? To appoint?
No, to serve.
Oh, to serve, okay.
Or maybe I misread that, but as I was running through all this, I thought it seemed fairly clear that if there was a town manager, let me turn back to that. Unless I misread as I was racing through.
So the appointing authority for the CPO is the town manager in a town without an applicable charter or bylaw provision. I think, you know, as part, this, you know, the CPO is empowered to award contracts, sign contracts, so, you know, just want to make sure that.
Okay,
I don't.
so, well, in any event, so I would move that, that we appoint, town manager Angus Jennings as the CPO until such time as there's another person on town staff that would be able to take that position.
Second,
Any certification required or?
It's not required. It's strongly recommended to be the MCPPO is, but that's a pretty intensive thing. I've done a lot of purchasing in my career. I have not been to the MCPPO training. I've been to others up in Maine, but here in Mass, it's a 9-day, over 3 consecutive years, to get the full certification. It's a 3-part. So Caitlin Bradstreet she's gotten the first one. She's very close to getting the second one. And then once she gets that, she's going to work toward her third one. Now they're offering it more online. So it's either a 3-day in person or a 25-hour self-paced. So I think she did the first one in person, and then the second one, she's doing the self-paced 25-hour. And then
For you to take the position, I mean, you don't have it. Is there any?
No, you don't. I talked to our auditor a couple of years ago, because actually Mike McCarron, who was chief procurement officer for many, many years, he never had the full, he had completed 2 out of 3, but he wasn't fully actually certified. When I learned that, I talked to our auditor and said, is this an issue? And he said, it is not a requirement to be certified. And he said, for a town our size, most towns don't have a certified procurement officer. But there is a lot of nuance with this stuff, issues with prevailing wage, and I mean, a whole host of things. So I do fully expect we've already been working more with town council on some of this in the last week than we normally ever would, because Wayne would know the answers. But, for instance, when we get to the town hall painting bids, we got 2 bids. One was half the other amount. And so we want to make sure that the low bid is fully responsive. So we want to ask questions or check references, so I'm running all that through town council, because I don't want to do anything that inadvertently screws up the bid, because we're now working with the low bid. So there's a lot of handholding we're going to need, just to make sure that we proceed with caution. We don't do anything that inadvertently, trip some wire that could end up being a real problem or generate a bid protest. So,
not to get off topic, but are those numbers looking okay as far as what we budgeted?
yes,
Yeah, good.
yeah. I mean, the low bid is like way below what we thought. And so our immediate thought is, do they fully understand the scope?
Right.
Do they,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Great, thanks.
But both bids are within budget. Terrific.
So back to the motion, any other discussion?
yeah, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Is a DPW director typically a CPO? Or is that? a meeting?
No, we were really fortunate
Okay.
to get that.
So it's really.
Larger towns will have a purchasing department.
Yeah,
Most towns our size, in fact, I'd be surprised if there's any town our size that has a purchasing office. It would typically be either the town administrator, town manager, or maybe someone in the finance department.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty rare for our town clerk to also be procurement. He had to obviously be an attorney and was well equipped to do that, but I think that was rare.
so I think it's pretty important for Caitlin to keep going and. and receive
Definitely.
the
Yeah, we're
certification.
fortunate that she's.
I know, FinCom Walter was questioning if we should be looking to get a full-time procurement / purchasing agent in town with all the projects we've got coming forward.
It is a major time burden. I mean, this footnote I put in was to just this is just what we're doing at the moment, and I've actually added 5 more to this list since I.
Think of everything else going forward between page and water and
I know it.
regular purchasing of equipment that's fairly expensive, and it's not you could almost pay for the position itself if it's done properly.
Mm.
If somebody's overseeing, like you say, high bid, low bid, you get 3 bids and you then get the spectrum, that becomes even more curious,
Mhm.
and there's, you know,
Well,
significant monies.
you know, just, you know, one example on this list, the investment services, this is something the investment policy committee for well over a year has been really interested in rebidding our investment, you know, manager. And, you know, I think they're very frustrated that we haven't gone forward yet, but there's an entire separate book about the procurement of banking and financial services. So there's nobody on staff who's done it. If we had nothing else to do, we could do it, but we have a million other things to do. So it's been very, very hard, and we haven't to this point found the bandwidth to actually prepare an invitation for bid, send it around, make sure we're following all the rules, which are different for that kind of purchasing. It wasn't something Wayne had any experience with. It was on his list, you know, but you've seen this list.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it's frustrating because there's things that it holds us back because we can't move as quickly as, and in fact, we kind of got into a bit of a pickle in the last week with Park and Rec to do with some of the fencing that was installed because the go-ahead was given to a vendor. It wasn't a vendor who put in the quote. They were bent out of shape. They didn't get the work, and it's all because it's very decentralized, because some of the commissions and, you know, the Park and Rec or, you know, library has definitely given us pushback as to whether they need to go through us. You know, there's a lot of the decentralized committee structure can kind of rear its head on the purchasing side if people are either making commitments or purporting to make commitments. There's actually nothing, if you read the Town Manager Act, there is nothing that vests in my office any authority whatsoever on awarding a contract or signing a contract. Whereas like in my last job, I was the only person who had the legal authority to bind the town contractually. That's like a big difference. So, you know, here it's different for different parts of the organization. So
I thought it was a pretty good question on Walter's behalf.
yeah.
And you could also combine it with purchasing and even grant proposal, you know,
Mhm.
you know, one's busy, the other's not, you could, you know,
Yeah.
jump back and forth, so it could potentially sometime in the near future have a value to the town.
Mhm. It's definitely, you know, we've definitely bulked up staffing in that regard quite a lot in that was a major justification of expanding the DPW support position from 15 hours a week to 34 hours. It wasn't just for procurement, but that was a major justification and need. Now that we don't have, you know, the chief procurement officer that we had, and now that support position may well become the chief procurement officer in the future. You know, because that person needs support. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a time intensive thing. So. Yeah, I think we're kind of always reevaluating what's the appropriate staffing structure, you know, as of a few weeks ago, it's actually the first time in the 5 years I've been here that we're actually, in my opinion, fully staffed. So I do want to just give that some time to settle out, because we may find that 80 hours a week in the clerk's office might be more than we actually need, in which case let's put that towards some of the grants administration or some of the other things. We'll definitely keep that office busy, but you know, we did that you know, there's a lot of dynamics there. I think finance department is still is appropriately
Lean.
staffed, but it's lean,
Yeah.
but it's very lean when you look at other towns.
So there would never be, CPO would never be somebody on the finance staff?
Oh, it could be.
Yeah, okay.
I think they would be too busy to do.
Yeah, I mean,
both.
not with our current structure.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
clearly not with the current structure. but-
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that would kind of be a natural. In a lot of towns, that's how it would be. As you know, certainly Wendy and Rick, you know, I've kind of looked at the select board, town manager, town clerk as somewhat fungible. You know, even though they're 3 different departments, and really 4, because finance and town manager are really different departments. There's been a lot of cross training, and especially in the last, 18 to 24 months, there's been a lot of, clarification of which functions are resting where, communications, website, board committee reappointments, town report, production, a lot of those things harbor, we're still working on that with some of the administration of some of the harbor master responsibilities, is still somewhat dynamic, in terms of who's actually doing that work.
Back to the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
All right, we'll send the paperwork to the state.
great. Okay, we've got the review of the letter from the Board of Water Commissioners dated April 24th.
Yeah, I had a question on that, Angus. They cited Article 6. Isn't that just the budget?
I assumed that they meant
Yeah, I was,
the Dole Place article on the special, and I sent a note to Mark to clarify that.
Okay,
I didn't get a response from him, but I assume that they are referring to the Dole Place study, which I kind of questioned that when I sent a note, I sent to Mark, I said, if that's what they were referring to, why? Because back in January, the board had sent them a memo, and then in March, then resent them the memo and sent them the RFQ. I think
Yeah,
we're really open about the Dole Place study.
I think Article 6 is what they meant, and it's because at that meeting, it was purported that they were not involved in the budget preparation, and that was corrected at the meeting, but I wonder if this is just carryovers from that. So
Which was at the meeting.
the Board of Water Commissioners meeting. that
Oh,
went
the one I didn't go to.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, I mean, it's not a huge deal. I think the basic point is they would like to be part of the discussion, which I think is fair. Going forward with the instructions,
I wish they'd been here. I was hoping they were gonna show, but
yeah.
Well, Bob did pop his head in, last week and he said, do I need to be there? I said, you don't need to be there. I said, you're welcome to be there. I provided a notice because I wanted him to know it would be agended. I did tell him that, and I think this was in the email I put in, that one of the outcomes of tonight is to try to get a joint meeting scheduled with them. I know that they share that objective as well. He wasn't, they weren't. I didn't want to spring it on them like they don't, have to be here.
yeah, no, I would have just said, as I mentioned earlier, I felt bad when I saw the latitude from a FinCom's perspective where I was. They do have a legitimate concern, and would have handled it differently now, knowing what I see. And then the other question, want to make sure they were, did they have any concerns with the instructions that were voted? Because we never had any feedback. So,
yeah,
If we have a joint meeting.
well, there was an opportunity at town meeting for feedback.
I know,
Yeah.
but it went silent, so maybe if we have a joint meeting in the future, we can.
We should talk about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, I
So-
think that there was some misunderstanding about the instructions. I will say that having a committee with one member from each board somehow diminished their authority and that they were gonna get 1/3 of the vote. So I think if, when we have a meeting, that's something to clarify for them.
yeah.
I mean, that's not, if you read it, that's not what it says, but that was the perception.
Okay.
So,
Designated member to participate in a negotiating team consisting of one board of commissioners.
but then they would bring that back to their
Right,
full board
right,
for voting.
right.
So I think it was just, they hadn't seen this before the meeting, and so I think they were just reading it on the fly and not fully understanding it.
Yeah. So as far as setting up a meeting, a joint meeting between the select board and the Board of Water Commissioners. Do you want to grab some dates for potential
Yeah,
meetings
I think it'd be good.
and see what works for them as well?
Do they have a standing meeting? No.
You're soon to be chair,
Mhm.
you are chair,
Yeah.
but come just for the next little bit. Posing. Would you prefer to have a separate meeting devoted to meeting with the Board of Water Commissioners or have work it into one of our regular meetings.
I think we have enough going on in a regular meeting.
Yeah.
It seems to me
I
that,
think a
yeah,
dedicated,
yeah,
meeting. I mean, we had one
Yeah.
last year, remember? So I think,
yeah. Yeah, okay.
I think maybe twice a year, that's just a good practice, that there's gonna be so much going on with the water
Right.
department. What are you smiling at, Chris?
I'm gonna laugh because at some point I was, not tonight, but I'm gonna suggest that maybe we do a biannual meeting with the finance committee
Mhm.
and see what issues they can research and study and help the select board with,
Mhm.
because they're looking to do more things.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the
they're-
off, kind of the off town meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm going to their next meeting sometime, I don't know when it is, June, with a list of tasks that we had decided we wanted to do, but they hadn't compiled. So just to present that to them, and that's
Mhm.
something that, again, just a lot more meetings to start generating, but,
Mhm.
they might even be interested in joining you for the water board meeting, because they have a lot of input on that too, so.
Yeah, I think it strikes me that one of the first things we need to do is build a relationship. With.
And that might be
with-
better just with the two boards.
Well, I mean, it'll be an open meeting, but, personally, I think we need to focus on building a relationship and understanding what each of our perspectives are.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, because the membership of both boards has changed since the last time we had a meeting. like
Right.
that.
Would it be best to request from them like 3 or 4 dates that they would like to do and then send them on? We can see which one works, give them the opportunity to pick the dates.
yeah, it's great.
I know when I'm gone in June, but then,
I hope you and I are gone the same time in June, because I'm gone
well,
somewhere.
we're scheduled, I looked at your meeting schedule, the meeting schedule you have in the packet, I'm good, I can dance all around that.
Except for the town meeting, right?
No, I can dance with that.
Okay,
We'll explain it when we get there.
all right, good. I don't know, I think it's generally more efficient if we propose some dates.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I think we have a more, a busier schedule.
Yeah.
Than,
That is not, I thought that was what Chris suggested, is that we.
Oh, I thought-
Well, I said, no, ask them, I mean,
Oh,
I know I
okay.
can't be here.
I'm just-
June 9th to the 19th, and then I get home for
Yeah,
like 2 days
yeah.
and I'm gone again, so June is burned.
so maybe end of May, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of
Sooner the
preparation.
better.
Yeah, exactly, the sooner the better.
Correspondence we've sent that we
Yeah.
just need to talk about.
yeah,
I'm looking at their, most of their last, 10 agendas have all been at 3:30 or 4:30 in the afternoon. They have one 8 AM meeting, they have one 5 PM meeting, but it seems like their preference is, late afternoon. I don't know if that's something this board can or wants to accommodate, or if you want an evening meeting. I have no preference as long as the date works. I'm fine.
I think they probably did that for the superintendent to be able
That's a
to.
good point. Yeah,
And the admin.
that's right. Yeah.
But they don't necessarily have to be, maybe. I mean, would you, I guess you don't care if it's the evening or afternoon.
I'll try to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, if it's late afternoon, like after 4, I can do it, if that's better. So, I don't have my calendar. I'm looking at like next week or the week after. It'd be good if we could do it on an off week cycle. with the
Yeah,
select board meetings.
I agree.
We have on the 22nd is penciled in for select one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Locked in.
so what does next Thursday look like for
Yeah.
others?
CPC meeting at 7:30,
Okay,
but. I mean,
Bob will be there for that, so
Yeah.
if we do something 5:30, maybe. I'll just,
for you,
works for me.
would that be better for you than doing it right before the CPC things, or,
that is, I guess I'm assuming it's gonna go a while.
well, I think we should, yeah.
It might be a 2-hour meeting.
All right, let's say 5:30,
Sure. If it works with them, we need to confirm.
Yeah.
Correct?
so would that communication come from you, Angus, or from the board?
If you're able to send it from that board account, I think that would be great. dovetails with everything I've talked about and Mark about, but.
Should I propose an agenda as part of that, or do you want to discuss that?
I mean, I think just to brainstorm, one is obviously the letter we sent to the IMA.
Yeah,
One that, you know, obviously the instructions,
mhm. I think we would want to lead with their letter to
Yeah,
us and
yeah.
acknowledge that.
yeah. This other, I put this in, you know, this thing about the debt service because it is something, you know, this follows prior correspondence I sent to them a couple of months ago where I'm just trying to be as clear as I can that I think a rate change, I truly believe that either a rate increase or a transfer at fall town meeting will be necessary.
Mhm.
So I just want to kind of continue to make sure they're clear on that
Mhm.
and explain that and happy to work with them and help them or whatever on that, but I
So,
don't want that to creep up on us in the fall.
so maybe we could ask for an update on the rate study that their consultants working on.
In terms of the hydraulic study, they do have a draft. Mark did lend me a copy and we did scan it, so I can send that around to you all. I don't know if they have it digitally, but that might be, you know, it might be good to see if they can provide us an update rather than, or if we're gonna be talking about the draft hydraulic study, they should know that ahead of time, so they don't feel like we're surprising them with that. But I was given a draft. I haven't come through it.
I'm worried about putting too much
Yeah,
on there.
that.
I mean, I think the rate study is relevant, given your concerns
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the,
We should request if there's any agenda items they want. to.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, there's also just, you know, clarification of, you know, goals for an adult place, or, you know, just general, you know, perspective. Hopefully that'll come out in conversation, but,
okay.
you know, there has clearly been distrust, and, you know, we need to get past that.
Mhm.
And the water commission is in the head of the water department, correct?
What's
Say
that?
that again.
The water commission is in Mark,
Mhm.
making sure, I'm just get all the right parties.
All right, well, how about if I pull something together and run it by you, and you can share it with the other board members, or?
Sure, yeah.
And so, next Thursday, so we should get it out by Friday, does that seem like enough notice? Does that seem right? Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could send them confirm the date,
Yeah.
you know, sooner than that.
Okay,
And say
I'll do that right
that
away.
later in the week, we'd send some suggested discussion items and invite them to offer.
Yeah.
Do we want a fallback time? Because, I mean, we all just agreed with it, but have no idea how.
Okay. I mean, we could do it on Monday.
I have actually a
Okay.
meeting Monday night.
I can't do Tuesday.
Yeah, I can't do Wednesday, so.
Okay, Thursday it is. I had my own issues.
Friday, I'm on too, so.
All right, so a fallback would be the following week, I guess, if we can.
Which you didn't want, because you have a meeting that week, but yeah.
That's not the end of the world. I mean, multiple meetings.
No, my meeting is the 18th, Chris, so the following week would be.
No, I mean,
Staying away
Oh,
from
oh.
the select board,
Oh.
that's not a
Yeah,
big deal.
okay, we'll start there.
Well, yeah, I mean, the following week I'm wide open except for Monday night, so. If they counter back, if they're not available and they throw some dates back, I mean, we can always schedule till we
Yeah.
can, you know, that's legitimate.
All right. We talk about PFAS.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get a tremendously robust response from the listserv.
So no local, none of our regional.
I mean, all I did was send the listserv.
Yeah.
I haven't asked around, so it's.
I mean, I guess if KP Law said we should do it, then
Yeah,
we do
yeah,
it? Just-
our council suggested we do it.
if we hadn't looked at their
can't-
website.
We
wouldn't
can't think
have-
of, we can't think of any reason why we wouldn't want to do it. We can think of reasons why we would never be able to pursue it on our own. So,
I have a question, if, you know, if you do join, does it preclude you from any other opportunities? A lot of times in a class action lawsuit, it does.
I would imagine that's,
So
yeah.
maybe you don't want to be the experiment.
this actually isn't the same as a class action though.
Well, may a lot, you know, any upfront costs from the towns, or is it just a
No.
percentage of the settlement? If they, I mean, you know, what is it? Does this require endorsement from the Board of Water Commissioners, or just the Select Board?
The select board, has sole responsibility for managing the town's litigation.
Okay, and if,
But we do know the water department is, supportive of the water. I
Okay.
assume the water.
and if there were litigation, I mean, where do these funds come from? Who specifically are they suing?
The manufacturers of the chemicals.
It dances around, it doesn't really say it, but
Yeah.
there's litigation already. And then the next is it talks about contamination for the water, but what about contamination, food, clothing, carpet? I mean, how deep does the suit go? Is this one specific just to water?
Yeah, this is specific just to water. I mean, that's what I took away from
Yeah,
it.
that's
And,
my
and,
understanding.
yeah, I mean, we're not gonna, the town has no standing to chase the company over PFAS being on the clothes that people in the town wear, or.
Well, I'm just saying, class action lawsuits like to lump large components together, so I don't know where it ends up. And again, council says you should. I'm not
Yeah, so
gonna-
this referred to as multi-district litigation as
Yeah.
opposed to a class action lawsuit. You know, I think class action lawsuit is something very specific.
It is, in essence, it's a group filing, I know.
Yeah.
Not a legal term probably, but.
Yeah, so Chris, the thing is, you know, in the meeting last month, we looked up this law firm and their website was pretty funny. They had the three partners standing in the front with the woman's hair blowing back. I mean, it looked like, you know.
Right, right.
And like the pop-up that came up.
Well, he just started doing this litigation too, somewhere in the packet. It's very odd, yeah, I didn't,
Yeah, so that's what made us pause and that, you know, we're just taking it back up again.
And I'm happy for you to table it. I would just say if we table it, let's table it for 2 months, because it's
Yeah.
just not something that we really have a lot of
Yeah.
bandwidth.
Is there any downside to
that's
tabling
the
it?
question.
No, I really don't think so. The only reason I've been pushing it forward is because Mark took the time to attend the webinar, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been pressing me, have you signed on yet? Have you signed on? I'm like, we'll bring it to the board, but you know, I don't think there's a huge picking, time block on this. I think we could revisit it in,
Mhm.
July. And, maybe by then we'll have a little more,
Yeah, I attended a webinar on PFAS 2 weeks ago, and the presenter said that they would provide a list of litigation firms, or, current, not lawsuits, but, current projects, so that might be helpful,
That'd
just
be
to see who
interesting
else
to see,
is
yeah,
out there,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you sign up now, you're tied in with this one
right,
firm.
right. But, I mean, if you're gonna do it, at some point, you have to make a decision, right?
Well, but right now, if they're the only game in town, you don't know what
Yeah.
game you're getting.
We gotta go for one with a better website. I agree, it was pretty.
That's pretty shady. The pop-up was bad enough, but the whole
Right.
blowing hair thing
Right,
was kind of weird. So, is there a way for us to ask Newburyport if they have
Sure.
joined in? I mean, who would?
Yeah, I mean, I've got several unreturned,
Okay,
quite. Anyhow, it's not easy to get a response back, necessarily from the corner of us,
So do we just table it for now?
I think so.
I think it'd be fine to table it and.
Would it be, could we ask Mark to reach out to the superintendent of Newburyport, just to
Yeah,
ask if they're
yeah,
doing it?
yeah.
If he's really motivated, then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
Okay. Debrief follow-up manual and special town meetings.
Did I miss it, or was it just his, write-up was just the special town meeting?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
just issued that annual yesterday,
Okay.
so.
Felt like
Yeah,
I
I
missed
don't,
something.
actually, I don't think I've seen it yet. I think Jenny mentioned she just got it. He's, no, wait, what? Yeah, not yet when this went out.
So I had a couple things that I wanted to follow up on. It seemed like there's still confusion on who reads the motions. And I don't know, I mean, the town talked about this is right before, maybe next time, but I don't know if there's a way to clarify the process, because we had some people, we were planning on reading it and they stood up and read the motion.
Right.
And then there was the whole thing about who was reading the Sawmill Brook
Mhm.
motion. So I mean, I feel like if committees or proponents want to read the motion, they need to be involved in the meeting so they know the proper language
Mhm.
for the motion. So I don't know, I just wanted to follow up and see if there's a way we could clarify that going forward. I don't know the appropriate time for that. Maybe when articles are submitted.
That's what I was gonna say, how about
Yeah.
a place on the form as to who will be
Yeah,
presenting the article?
and then we could follow up with them to make sure they have the correct language. Yeah,
And you could even have the default position of the select board if they didn't want to.
right.
Are you saying when that form is submitted
Yes,
3 months prior or 2 months, however far
Yeah.
prior?
they're the interested party.
Yeah,
If they want to present it, they're welcome to, but if they don't, then you default to the select board.
Yeah.
Give them the opportunity to.
okay.
But the language of the motion will always, go through town council.
So I think that was, the in the Sawmill Brook, there was a separate motion written by the person that thought they were gonna be reading it, not even understanding that we've gone through several meetings and,
Oh.
yeah, so I think the whole concept of it is not really clear to the public or some committee members. So,
I was not aware of that.
yeah,
If you have it on the form as to who's presenting it, that'll be very clear, and then you'll
Yeah.
let them know that on a certain
We
date,
follow
we'll
up
get
with
them
them. Yeah,
the motion.
yeah,
Yeah, I think. A lot of people, and I would include myself prior, to a few years ago,
mhm.
didn't realize that there's very specific language that's important to incorporate into a motion and, yeah, you gotta cover all bases.
Yeah. The other thing I got feedback on obviously was the long wait to get in. I mean, I don't know, I mean, this is happening in Newbury, the same thing happened in a lot of towns. I think it happened in Merrimack, people waited for at least an airline. Is there any provision that if we see that there's a higher than expected turnout, we can have somebody with an iPad go out into the line and check people in? I guess that's a question for Jim. But it would be
That's the
good to.
largest crowd I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it would just, we don't want to discourage people from coming, but if next time they think, oh, I had to wait in line outside for an hour, So if we can have some kind of plan B.
Yeah, I think there were 2 or 3 articles that drew people out and. None of us, nobody who, had been involved in the process all the way along anticipated that, and I don't know if you can anticipate that always, so,
Well, they should be prepared for the worst.
yeah. Well, I mean, be prepared for the worst would be to reserve the high school auditorium.
Well, I actually wondered at one point if we're gonna have to,
I don't think it was the physical size of the space, it was that the check-in process, there were only 2 people checking in.
Yeah.
you got pretty close to capacity on the side.
Well, that
too,
is
so-
true, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe I'll follow up with Jim and just ask him if there's a way to, have a mobile person checking. in.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, because I remember when we had the meeting at the high school, the same thing happened. I don't remember what it was on I think it was another open space purchase.
Maybe you need a mobile team, you need 2 people, probably to maintain to do the job, you probably need 2 people.
Yeah,
if nothing else, one person's gonna be handing out red and green.
Right.
Well, I think in the future, I don't know what the attendance at this meeting was. I think you better prepare for that many at a minimum. And if you get less, you're okay.
Mhm.
And that's where you should start from at this point. I mean, that was a surprising,
It was almost 400, wasn't
It was over 300. I don't know what the actual.
usually Casey's begging everyone to pick up
I
the
know.
phones and
it?
call.
Although
for it.
that's not
Yeah,
calling people.
exactly right. Yeah, last time we were half an hour late because we couldn't get a quorum. This year we're half an hour late because we had too many people, so
Yeah.
you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Another thing that came out of that is the financial policies. Is that, should that be on our agenda to update those? You know, the whole question about the, I can't remember the article, the thing that FinCom voted against that.
Oh, about that. Yeah, it should. I mean, I would much prioritize procurement conflict of
Yeah,
interest.
just
employee
wanna note
reimbursement.
the
Some of the
things
ones I've been working on.
What
for
are we-
months
I'm
and
confused as
months.
to what we're talking about.
The pension liability.
Oh,
So we voted for it because it was a current policy voted by the select board in the FinCom, you know,
Oh.
Back
so.
in, in 2018.
And so Walter said, well, let's just change the policy. And so we said, yeah, we'll work on changing the policy. So just want to put that out there, that should be on our list.
It is on the list,
Okay.
but there's 19 of them. And it's from where I sit.
that's the kind of
it's,
thing, give it to the FinCom, let them do the work and present it.
Priority, that's,
That's a good idea.
and until some of the higher priority ones like a procurement policy, which
Yeah.
we still don't have.
Right.
Until that's done, I can't justify spending 2 minutes on that
But
policy.
that's one of the things that the finance committee would like to do, and they could do that. You don't
Yeah,
have to be there.
yeah,
They
I
could
could send
present
it to
the.
them in Word, and if they wanna, mark up red lines and, I think, that would be fine. We would definitely wanna review it with DOR, not because they're in charge, but just to get their input, because it was based on their advice that it was adopted in the first place.
So can you add that to your list if
It's
you
on
are
my
gonna
list.
meet with FinCom? Okay.
Yeah.
Not just that one policy, but all of the policies.
Well, there's that, yeah, I've got it, all the reserves, you mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whatever financial.
But again, they need that direction ultimately from the select board.
Yeah.
And again, if we just have sometime a meeting with them and say, here's 5 items, would you tell us what you'd like to engage on and go?
Mhm. Okay.
I'll get you my list. How's
Speaking
that?
of FinCom, we need to find a member.
I know,
2 members, right? Or just one?
just one currently.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm done, obviously, and Walter's up for reappointment, so.
So it might be that we just want to appoint one. Right, and, it's by bylaw, 6 members.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other follow-up stuff for town meeting?
I don't have any.
I thought it was a great meeting, but it was frightening, again, you could spend $18 million without a question.
I found that disturbing. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish there'd been more, even on the flag issue, there wasn't any conversation.
I don't know. Richie was willing to go at it.
Yeah,
But no, I mean, to spend that money to go through everything, I know the presentation and give credit to Angus was very well done.
mhm.
And if they can sit there and look at the tax bills, not just going up negligible, and you get to do all this good stuff. But I felt like they were a bunch of zombies. I want some interaction and feedback with them. Good, bad, or indifferent. It just,
Yeah,
and again, to Rick's point, I think they were there for once the Sawmill Brook property voted, then room vacated 1/3 of the people, so.
Yeah, there was another, I can't remember what the other one was. Another
Yeah,
one.
weeds, pulling the weeds. 20 grand to pull weeds, got a standing ovation.
Well, and I think a lot of people thought there was a school override. We
right,
definitely had people at check-in saying, where's the vote about the override?
Right.
Maybe that
It's
was
over
it.
in Groveland or down.
Yeah.
But if you're here and you got in the door, you're probably not eligible to go there. and get
Yeah,
in there.
right. Bond anticipation notes?
Yeah, really, the main thing is just to pin down that we've got the date, because as you know, that kind of drives a lot of things. So I think the June 26th date, that relies on, approval of the schedule, but, this is, it's really a very kind of ministerial process. The board does have, the it's your vote to award the, the sale of the bond anticipation notes, but a year from now, our expectation is that we, assuming things go forward with Church and Prospect as we anticipate, that roughly a year from now, we'd be converting these bands to long-term debt. But until we do that, it's an annual reissuance of the bands.
So is that something you need a motion on?
No, I just need to be able to get back to Hilltop and let them know June 26th is the correct date, because they just need to know what date this board is going to
Okay,
approve the sale of the bands and sign the paperwork.
and that's consistent with the meeting schedule? Yeah,
It's consistent with what we proposed, yeah.
okay.
But this does have a gap in, instead of going June 5th and June 19th because of Juneteenth, going on the 20th, and we thought later in the month would be better for some of the year-end things. And it also kind of then naturally leapfrogs over the July 4th week, and it just kind of aligns with some of the.
Yeah, I was afraid I was gonna be negotiating scheduling, and then I started putting this in, and
It worked out perfectly.
everything works out perfectly.
It works great with my
Yeah,
scheduled
yeah,
vacations this summer as well.
Good.
Yeah, I told Jim, don't put it in the packet till so he and I look at it.
Well, as long as it works. for
And
you.
it doesn't mean it can't change, it can change, but we wanted to put something out there that was a good starting point.
So Chris, you're all set with these dates?
Well, town meeting is good. Yeah, so how busy? We have a meeting October 2nd and then 2 weeks later on the 16th.
Mhm.
That's all I need is that kind of time frame available, because I'm gonna be heading out.
Mhm.
Will there be any required information work to be done in that time frame?
When are you heading out?
Well,
Between?
I'll probably go out like on the 3rd and be back on the 15th.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll just run rough job.
Well, I don't know how busy the select board gets in advance of a special town meeting.
well, there's some meeting with the joint meeting with the FinCom and
Yeah,
moderator, and that's usually the week before. That would probably be the 16th, right?
Yeah, we'll probably be the 16th, you would
Because the
think.
FinCom in that time frame is very busy, so that would.
Yeah.
But probably in September, not in October.
Yeah, typically, because their booklet would be issued 2 weeks prior, so October 9th.
Yeah, so that, I mean, I'm good with the dates where they are.
Yeah, okay.
If there's stuff in those
No.
2 week interims, I might.
yeah, no, we should, I mean, plus it's, fall special town meeting, and nothing's ever for sure, but, it's not as much generally to consider as it would be an annual town meeting, so who knows what might happen.
Yeah, so I think that schedule looks good. So then,
I'm sure I checked this last week, but is Columbus Day the 9th? I'm sure that we.
I don't think we celebrate him anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, indigenous
Indigenous
people.
Come on,
I just want to make sure.
Actually, has the state officially made that change?
not until we get rid of the flag.
It's the 9th, okay, so this schedule, worked out well, it kind of naturally skips over a lot of the holiday weeks.
Well, and then September 5th is the only one that's off Tuesday because of the holiday. It's not to be obvious, but make sure everybody's aware.
Yep. Yeah, I personally really like having a meeting on that first day after Labor Day. I know Archie never liked that, but that's the natural start of the fall. Everyone knows it's the end of summer. It's not anyone's favorite day, but it is an important day to kind of hit the fall, hit the ground running, so. It's probably too soon now, but at some point, you can think through when you want to close the warrant, and the more notice we give the people, the better. And it's sometimes not till early August, late July, early August, we'll send something out that it's like late August, and maybe if we send something out in June saying it's late August, that just gives more people more time to prepare.
okay, minutes.
I don't think I have.
I had just a missing word on page 75. Item E, the town manager evaluation. 4 sentences down, it says Archibald, there's missing said or stated or reported or something.
Screened.
And I actually had a question, page 74, and it's not an issue with the minutes. I don't recall, what is the final disposition of the COA van? Has there been one? Yeah. I didn't- Okay.
It's
I didn't recall.
authorized, but we haven't
Okay.
moved forward.
Okay.
So,
Were we waiting on feedback from the school?
it's the bandwidth issue.
Oh, okay, I couldn't remember. I know we had talked about that.
No, we had other
Yeah.
projects in the work.
That were more important.
I don't think he's planning on getting to it real soon.
All right, I move to accept the minutes of January 30th as amended.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chris abstains. We're going to speak here.
At work.
So we talked a little bit in executive session, but we've gotten, I think now up to 9 applicants, interviewed 5. In the process of shortlisting that to invite some number of candidates back for second round interviews. And then some number of finalists would be interviewed by the full board in a public meeting. And that's definitely not going to be 2 weeks from tonight, but it could very well be the first meeting of June. So that's generally the timeline we're proceeding on. And we have some really, strong applicants in the field, so we're hopeful about that. In the meantime, as you know, a couple of employees have taken on additional responsibilities to help during the transition. Very much appreciated. Item P, I threw a lot of information out there. So happy to, elaborate on anything or answer any questions you may have. I will add just some new information. I'll just take them in order. The first one, the DEP site visit. We did get some, feedback from the DEP person in the last day or so, and she said she was heartened to see the amount of documentation and the seriousness with which the contractors take the issue. This has been going on for a long time, so there's some frustration about that, but at this point, DEP hasn't moved to actually take over jurisdiction, which they do have the ability to do. And that could still happen, but that's an active issue. Let's see, why don't we deal with the Middle Street Bridge after this, because I do have some new information there. Anything from this memo that you wanted to kind of elaborate on?
I had a question on the town hall
Yeah,
painting bids.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that for the CPA funding, it sunsets at the end of this fiscal year, right?
yeah.
And we're all set for that, as long as they're,
As long as someone's under contract,
Okay.
yeah, the sunset is it's a local contract, it's not a state thing, and the way both the former and the current town accountant look at it is similar to an encumbrance. If the work is under contract and underway, they'll carry it forward. Because the intent of the sunsets is, as you know, it's not so much to squeeze projects as it is to make sure these don't languish for years as just, encumbered balances that can't then be appropriated. So, yeah, as long as we award a contract and get someone to work, which we fully expect to do.
So this has turned out to be a bigger project than painting. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of
Oh, yeah.
wrought on the
Oh, yeah.
siding and everything, and
Yeah.
so that's all being done in-house, and the
Yeah.
painting is. what's
Yeah,
being
Brian's
done.
been working for the last 2 months, and you probably see it when you drive by.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of work out there, and we'll continue to do work to replace the rotted sills and, they've done a lot of exterior work to get the building ready for painting.
How much was allocated for the painting?
About 105 was the total amount. If you back out just the painting, it was more like, I actually just did a memo to, or an email to town council on this today. I excerpted all the numbers. I could send that to you guys. I think it was about 55 or 60 of the total amount was for the painting. But based on the actual balance available, there's about 98,000 unspent because the work that's been done in-house hasn't been paid from the CPA allocation. So
On the paint scheme, is that run by the historic commission or something?
many meetings.
Yeah.
Historic Commission and Historic District Commission were both closely
What's with
involved.
the black X's?
That's actually how it was. My understanding is that's how it was originally. So this is a,
It looks like a house that's gonna get demolished when they put the X's on it.
I was surprised too when I saw it. Yeah, no, Wayne was very.
Those are orange X's, I think.
No. It's been
Historic
more
District Commission,
semi-gloss on
Historic
its black.
No, I was kidding when I said, when they put the X's.
Oh, they're red, but yeah, because I used to work in Manchester by the
Yeah.
airport. Every time I'm gonna take down a house,
Yeah.
and that's just what it looks like. I just, okay. We don't vote on it.
Yeah, I know he worked very closely with them prior to issuing that.
I'm sure you'll get some feedback once that's happening.
Yeah. Sure we will.
Can I ask just that on the other list, and it says beavers, what are we talking about the beavers?
We're talking about beavers. There's a number of sites, but really the primary
Overflow thing?
focus is that one across from the middle high school, and I'm sure you can see the water level. So, you know, Paul's done a lot of work on this over the years, and he's been working closely with Michelle on this one, and so they brought me into a meeting about a week and a half ago. Because they feel that a beaver deceiver is gonna be warranted in that location because it's land that's under the select board's control. You would need to vote to authorize us to pursue it, notice of intent with Concom. So we can expect that at a future meeting. It could be at the next meeting. There's a site visit first thing tomorrow with a consultant who's coming down to look at the site, and if they recommend that, which is what we expect they'll recommend, they'll then give us more detail on what would need to actually be submitted to Concom. Paul had offered to take the lead on preparing the notice of intent. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow morning, but I guess, one of the big issues is, just determining what's the right water level, and that's ultimately gonna be up to Concom. But coming in with a proposal that's likely to meet their approval is something that Paul and Michelle and consultant would be working on. There's a lot of history on that site, that particular site.
And the consultant is who?
The consultant
Is
is,
that the separate
uh,
attachment, right?
it was, but I had asked Paul that specific, best way wildlife.
And they're being hired by the town?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I know there was some DOT approval, right, or?
Well, yeah, if there's any work within the right of way, that's gonna require DOT approval. So we're not there yet, but it's
Okay.
likely to be
Yeah.
involved. So yeah, they had quoted, I think, an initial price of $100 to come down and visit the site, kind of give their general take on it. And then if we want to go forward, it would cost a bit more to actually install get the thing permitted and installed. So that's tomorrow morning at 8. They're actually gonna meet at Nick's. So I told them, depending on if this doesn't go too late, then I would intend to be there, so. Fingers crossed.
Right, well,
We're in the home stretch here.
9:36, I think we'll hit Chris's stated goal of 10.
Things not gonna turn into a pumpkin.
I'll fall asleep under the table.
Yeah, Sawmill Brook, I know Rebecca was on Zoom today with Michelle and with Vanessa. and I know Greenbelt's gonna do the lion's share of that work, but there is.
Right, I was under the impression they were doing all of it. so-
They're doing a lot of it,
Okay.
yeah, but there's just different, we're the applicants, so
Right,
we, you know,
right.
there's different things we have to provide.
So that will fall on the conservation agent or?
Well, so I got a note from, I was not on today's webinar. But this afternoon, Michelle sent an email, you know, suggesting a meeting in the next few days with me, Michelle, and Vanessa. I have zero time in
Mhm.
the next few days. And when I have time next week, there's like a lot of other things I have to get done. So I'm gonna suggest if there's a meeting, Rebecca and Michelle,
Mhm.
I do not have the bandwidth to work on this right now.
Mhm.
I mean, I could do it, but I won't get done all the other stuff that I have to get to, so. I'm hoping it's not gonna be a big lift for town in general, because
Yeah.
Michelle's buried too.
Right.
You know, she's, you know, got the conservation interns there, you know, starting interviews tomorrow with them,
And she's still part-time.
and she's still part-time, yeah, and,
Yeah, maybe a rough month for her.
she's stretched very, very thin, so.
Yeah.
And, you know, we just basically learned today, we're gonna be applying for a new MassWorks grant that's due in 3 weeks, so.
Oh, so you did,
Well, I mean, that's,
okay.
I think we have to do that, yeah, we
Is that
got.
the new information that you said there was?
Well, a couple of new things on the bridge, so one is, yeah, so I followed up with the state because Wayne and I had a Zoom with them a few weeks ago on the process to extend. And you know, what we had agreed at that time, but they hadn't sent us, you know, follow-up, so I sent them a note to kind of say, hey, this is what I recall, is this correct? And they got back to me and said, oh, yeah, they dropped the ball, they haven't followed up. So what we had talked about a few weeks ago, the recommendation was that we both seek an extension of the current MassWorks grant, but also apply for a new one. Because we're not gonna know about the extension until after June 2nd, which is when the deadline is for the new one. I think it's very, you know, certainly possible, and I think it's probable we would not get an extension, because even if we get an extension, it would only be for 1 year, and there really is not a realistic scenario where we not only not have the project complete, I don't see a clear path to have someone under contract to build the bridge in FY24, because the cost gap is such what it is.
Right.
So I'm gonna do, you know, I'll do the best I can to get an extension, but I'm gonna be very honest about the situation. And I would personally rather lose the grant, reapply, get a new grant, get a new 3 years, rather than get a 1-year extension. And if going into the year, we really don't, unless we get, you know, the gap, you know, is big.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So was $1 million the limit on the MassWorks grant, or could, okay, so we can't apply for it.
Correct. Yeah.
But still, if we applied for a new $1 million, that would be, then we'd be.
Potentially, I mean, they say, they don't know, they've been really, the grant administrators of the state have been really great through the whole 3 years. They've been really accessible, really responsive, and I don't often say that about state people. They've actually been really, really good to work with. But they've been very clear with us. It's a new administration. They don't know what's gonna happen. They don't know will this next round, will they look at our maximum award being the unspent amount from our prior grant, or will they reset the clock and their advice to us was to apply for $1 million, but they said there's definitely a scenario where you're capped at, you know, the net amount.
Yeah.
They just don't know that. So some of the other new information, obviously the new cost estimates we got Friday, which we've known for, you know, about 2 months that they were working toward, and we expected them Friday, and they came in Friday. And no surprise, they were, you know, quite a bit more than the ones from 2 years ago. And then the third kind of big new thing is I did get confirmation that the mayor's FY24 budget proposal does carry $700,000 for the Middle Street Bridge. I just learned that today, not because anyone told me, but because I was able to find it on their website, because I can't get a response. So I sent another note over to the mayor's office today, and this time I copied his chief of staff and the city engineer and their new DPS director, just to say this is our intent.
Who's the DPW director?
So we're gonna need, I'm not expecting, much support on the MapWorks grant. It would be our grant, not theirs. But we certainly need, to verify that the information we're providing, on what the remaining balance in their MassDOT grant, they'll work with us. They always have at the staff level. So, but some of the information I'm still trying to get is, okay, so the budget includes 700, which is great. But that's just what's proposed.
Right.
We're gonna go to the council, and I couldn't find on the city council website any insight on what their budget review process. I didn't find any calendar or dates or anything like that. So I'm trying to get some, just clear information. When's this actually gonna come up? Can we, we don't need the permission, what we'd like to be in coordination to actually, we'd like to be able to present the project and go to a public meeting and, make the case of why it's in both communities' interest to really, strike while the iron's hot and use the money we have and work together. So I'm still waiting on, kind of some good replies. I think I've sent like 3 or 4 unresponded, kind of detail. I think did I include no, I didn't, but yeah, I wrote up quite a lot of detail. And actually, some of what I wrote to the mayor, I then modified into this memo in here. So that's, in terms of the balance remaining, how much has been expended, he'd asked me some of those questions. So I put that all together, and then I thought, well, I'm going to do a memo to the board. So that's what I did. But the funding shortfall, if you, let's say Newbury Port approved that amount, we're still at a $1.5 million shortfall, assuming we keep the MassWorks money we have. So it's a very big gap. And we did do some work with the city's grant writer earlier in the year, and we, looked at 8 or 9 different potential grants, and none of them seemed like a good match. But that's something that, we don't have a lot of bandwidth to do much more than we've done, and it's just, we got to find more money. We have to find 7 figures of new money. So one of the ideas, and I kind of allude to this in the memo of this, a couple of scenarios, that please discuss these further on Tuesday. One thing that I had floated to the board about 2.5 years ago as a potential future plan, in the event that there is a funding gap. And I'll just float this tonight and see if you think it's worth spending some time to flesh out, but would there be a scenario where the town of West Newbury could borrow to build the bridge and absorb the cost and have an agreement with Newbury Port whereby they reimburse 50% of the debt service over the course of 20 or 25 years? That could be an easier thing for them to agree to than trying to come up with some 7-figure amount in a relatively short term, which is probably not going to happen. So I don't know if that would be saleable in our town, if people would agree to that. And I also don't know if that's something that they can lawfully agree to, because I don't know if they can pre-commit a funding, commitment that far into the future. They may not have the legal ability to even entertain an agreement like that. But that's short of an infusion of an additional 7-figure non-local grant. Those are the only 2 paths I see to get this bridge built at this point.
Yeah. That town meeting appropriation, does that have a sunset date? Was it under that?
FY 24. That could be extended, right, the meeting vote, but yeah, that's FY 24.
Yeah, I'd be, yeah, I mean, we talked about that the other day. I'd be really surprised if they legally can do that.
Yeah,
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 I don't think they could either, I'm just guessing.
I mean, it's sort of akin to us making a commitment of what town meeting is gonna vote on
Right.
18 years from now.
right, yeah. No, it'd be one thing if it was jointly issued debt and they were on the notes, but
Right,
it's
right,
not that
right.
the case. They are not legally
Right.
bound to,
Mhm.
If it was an IOU.
right?
Handshake. Yeah.
A couple
Wait,
of
wait,
Bitcoins.
Deja vu. So who's gonna work on the grant application?
Well, so I've been keeping the primary kind of people I've been coordinating with on staff to this point have been Jenny, myself, Jim, and Caitlin Bradstreet. And then, of course, Rebecca's copied on everything. She's got access to my email, so she's aware of everything, but it was, I ran into the town planner late this afternoon and I was in here and she walked by, how are things going? I said, we're buried, you know, and she said, what can I do to help? And well, we gotta do a grant application in the next 3 weeks. And she said, I'd love to help. So I shipped off a bunch of information to her this afternoon. She said she has the bandwidth. She's willing to kind of help quarterback it, which is great because I can help, Jenny can help, Jim can help, we can all help, but none of us have the bandwidth to like, I mean, it's, you know how much work it is doing these grants. We do have the 2019 application. We have it in editable format. So there's obviously some cutting and pasting that can happen, but it's also going to be updated for the last 4 years of everything that's gone on. And really with Wayne's departure, I'm really the only person who knows all of that. So I will definitely be hands-on with the application. And I've penciled it in for, your next meeting in 2 weeks to get your formal vote to authorize to pursuing that. But I think that's obviously kind of a no-brainer as long as we can find the bandwidth to do it. I think one thing that's challenging in a grant like this is, they look for letters of support. Well, we have all those in 2019. I guess we can just resubmit those. I don't personally feel we have the bandwidth to although I don't know, it wouldn't hurt. It's just we can't do everything and we're trying to do everything. And I lost 2 hours today on a fence out at Pipe State, literally 2 hours today on that thing. And, I've been buried in procurement stuff for the last 2 days, signed, actually I didn't want to sign them today because I wasn't, named CPO yet, but tomorrow I'll sign the catch basin cleaning contract and the street sweeping contract and the line striping contract. I'm working really closely with Jenny and Caitlin and Butch on how can we use this RAP money. We have $100,000 of RAP money to use in the next 7 weeks. That's pretty darn important. I've put in 4 hours on that in the last couple of work days. That's a very high priority. So it's, drumming up letters of support. It's just not, we can't do everything. We can't do everything. So.
Any fresh thoughts on how to use the RAP money with
Yeah, so these, the timing, so what happened with these 3 contracts I mentioned, the street sweeping, catch basin cleaning and striping, those all fall within eligible uses.
Right.
It just so happened MVPC was doing those procurement processes on a regional basis and Wayne, months ago had opted in. So we are part of that. Once MVPC selects the bidder, which they did on Friday for each of those, each community then has to enter its own contract. Caitlin drew up contracts based on the template that Wayne did. So she sent those to me today and they look great. But then it's a mess. So I got to sign the contracts. Then we got to contact the vendors and say, how much can they do for our particular town in the next 6 or 7 weeks? And then just kind of chip away at, if they say they could do 20 grand of work, great. If they can't start till July, that doesn't help us with the RAP situation. So that's where we've got, which, so I've had Caitlin, putting together what contractors, what vendors do we have under contract who do work that is eligible for RAP? And then working with Butch on, is there some smaller paving project or crack sealing or something that we can carve off, get scoped out, give someone the green light to actually get that work done in the next 7 weeks? Like, that's the work we're doing every single day in this office, is trying to, and that's a lot of work. That takes a lot of time, and without the director there, we're all doing the best we can, but we're not the DPW director, so we're kind of working together and trying to collectively do what, the director normally do. So we'll see. And then the other thing we're doing is we're looking back at money spent so far this fiscal year in the highway, sidewalk, and trees expense line, to see if any of that can be journaled over to RAP money. There are things we maybe paid out of the operating budget that would have been eligible out of RAP that we can now journal over. So we're going to try to, I hope we're not going to have to give any money back, but I'm not able to say that now. It depends how it all goes and whether the vendors can move quickly. But we really, when we lost the paving contractor, I just learned that 2 weeks ago. That was an enormous setback. I mean, that was a huge kick in the teeth. And the RAP money, you guys will remember, we just learned about that like last summer. It kind of fell out of the sky, money from the state to say, okay, you got to spend it by June 30th. Well, that's great, but it takes time to, spend money. It's not, it's, we actually, I know Wayne put quite a lot of effort trying to get the idea of, Christine Walls were really pressing DEC to do that, and they just couldn't, to get us a plan, but they couldn't find the bandwidth to do it. So, yeah, we don't want to give any of that money back, but it was definitely a setback to lose the paving contract.
What was it, 120 or something like that to begin with?
No, it was 152,
152.
and we've spent about 50. So. But Jenny emailed me today, there's like an $8,100 expense. So, with journaling over, I think, we'll chip away, but we don't want to give back any of that money if we can avoid it.
Right. Okay.
Well, that's great that Sue stepped in to help us.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Because I'd heard that June 2nd date a while back, but until today, it really had not been like in my consciousness. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's like very soon.
Yeah, I don't have questions regarding any of the other projects. Chris, are you? I'm good. I didn't see the not that I need to see it, but I just and I know we want to wind down. There's grants under active purchase, under active management and town planning report. Is there?
Yeah, no, they're in there. They're page 119. Yeah, this is actually, this spreadsheet is a distillation of a much broader Excel workbook that Jenny's been working on for a while, quite a while. And I kind of distilled it to the most salient stuff. It's got like all what we've been trying to build out for probably 2 years now is a reference that we can rely on that's got the various dates for different quarterly reports, annual reports, grant closeout deadlines, just so we can have it in one place. Stephanie and I have done a bunch of work on that, but we haven't really gotten it to where it needed to be. And then Jenny's really taken the reins and run with that. So there's different tabs within this for instance, the MathWorks grant, where she's tracking, every expenditure. So we've got like in addition to obviously the accounting software, we have that, but it's just not good to have it in an Excel format because it's more, manipulable. But this just gives a kind of a snapshot of the number of grants that are under active management. And, to Krista's point earlier, like
that's a lot.
it's a lot,
Yeah.
and I personally put in a bunch of time on some of these, like the Clean Vessel Act pump out grant, that you might not have any idea, but that over the course of the year, that actually takes a fair amount of time, so there's a lot of things that we're doing that are very much kind of under the radar, but yeah, it all adds up. So in my observation, I think we probably manage a lot more grants than other towns our size. I think we've been better in the last few years, maybe of being more strategic at going for bigger grants that are worth the effort, rather than like you go after a $5,000 grant, it's like you're spending 10 grand at staff time. It's just not even worth it, so.
Okay.
So yeah, I just wanted to share this because it's kind of a newer work product. And then the planner report is, Chris, this is something new just since we hired the new town planner in the fall. She does these every month or so, and it's terrific. They're always chock full of good information. He tends to give me a draft before she finalizes it, so for instance, like the corridor stuff, I ended up writing a bunch of that just because I am more hands-on with that. But her board's gonna definitely be very involved with that. And then the Christine Wallace is left. Before we hired her in the fall, me and Wayne were doing all of these on top of it's a lot. And we're making progress on all of these. We had a meeting last week. You were at the meeting, Rick, on the phone system.
Yeah.
But that's something that at a staff level is like probably the most important thing, but it just languishes. But our phone system is so bad. It's been, it's been a problem for many years, but it's not a simple thing to swap out.
It was a real bonus that, Wayne Emerald's wife was a town manager in Kittery, Maine, and they just replaced their phone system relatively recently, so they were able to do a road trip up there and take a look at it and kind of get some, direct feedback on that particular system, which sounds like will probably be the choice.
All right, we do everything.
I think we're through.
Yep.
Move we adjourn.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Of course, you sound tired. Yeah. You be done.
Hey,
Check on the back of that. I know.
great.
I was-
You
I
guys.
think you did that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
You can have it.